all in the camera.
Get yourself ready, man.
I've paid my dues time after time. I did my sentence, but committed no crime and bad mistakes. I've made a few. Come on now. I had my shell kicked in my face, but I come through.
Ooh.
And we can go on and on and on. Sing with me and on. And we are the champions, my friend. Bum, bum. And we'll keep on fighting till the end. Bum, bum, bum. Ladies and gentlemen, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are Super Bowl 55 champions. I told y'all a week after we signed Tom Brady that we were going to the ship.
Can I request
take that away from me.
Can I request that clip? I'm going to clip that for us for next week. I'm going to find that episode because I remember very vividly you talking about that and road to the Super Bowl. And I remember, I don't know if I did, but I remember a lot of people calling you a homer.
Oh, dude, every name in the book. Shout out to my boy Brian Carter singing "We Are the Champions" with me because it's a Queen classic and it's the most fitting song that you could have right now. But yeah, dude, I was called a homer. I was called a borderline idiot. Dude, every name in the book that I was called, you name it, I was called it. You know, but ye who laughs loudest is usually the good old saying. And here we are, man. And first of all, welcome to the Mack podcast. That's Mack representing out there in Chicago with Steve. I'm down here in Houston. I'm the black portion of the show. We got lots to get to today. We're going to recap the Super Bowl. I'm going to make hella controversial statements. And then we'll get into some NBA talk. We were talking a little basketball beforehand. I want to talk some Major League Baseball, too, because they brought out the predictions, whatever that
Yeah, I saw that.
They
can kiss my ass with that. Go ahead. Yeah.
Horrible. Whatever idiot thought that the Atlanta Braves were only going to win 82 games this year and finish fourth in the National League East are morons.
They had the White Sox finishing third, I think, with like 70 wins. I don't know what the hell they're thinking.
Yeah, I don't get it either. And this same stupid ass system had the Mets winning the National League East. On what planet are the Mets winning the National League? We'll get into that later because Met fans are delusional too. So we'll get into that later. We'll talk some UFC. We got Usman versus Burns tonight, and then we'll talk Dana White. Really, at this point, getting desperate, grasping for straws. You know, Khabib has come out and said at least 12 million times. He basically at this point said, "Look, you could just give Dustin Poirier the belt at this point. I'm not interested in fighting him." And then like 2 days later, here's Dana White. Well, we're still optimistic that we're gonna get Khabib to come back. Dude, either Dana White smokes crack or he's a real idiot. So we'll get into that. But dude, let's talk about what was Sunday, bro. Ooh. Super Bowl 55. We talked to Christian last week. You know, I wouldn't say the whole world, but there was a good vast majority of people that picked Kansas City.
Oh yeah.
And you know, all the controversy aside, like, you know, we go into the game, right? And obviously Eric Fisher gets hurt. They have to reshuffle the line. Tampa Bay, actually, believe it or not, as Kansas City went out hurt, Tampa Bay came back healthy.
Yep.
You know, you're bringing in Vita Vea back. You know, Shaq Barrett's healthy. JPP's healthy. Devin White, obviously, has been playing his ass off since he came off the COVID list.
The wide receivers, the Bucs wide receivers who have been banged up all season, yeah.
Exactly. You know, Antonio Brown, you know, missed at least the last game and in the second half of that New Orleans game with the knee injury. You know, he comes back, and you know, Tampa Bay came out and really played their asses off. Yeah. And to the extent of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have become the first team of Patrick Mahomes' entire football career to not throw a touchdown in a football game, which is amazing.
Yeah.
So the Bucs come out, they win 31-9. Tom Brady ends up being Super Bowl MVP, even though, and I said this with like 5 minutes left. As a matter of fact, it was more like whenever Devin White got that interception is when I was saying that Todd Bowles needs to be the Super Bowl MVP. He didn't play. I get he didn't play, but the game plan that Tampa Bay came against Kansas City, I came out and said that the blueprint now is out on Patrick Mahomes. Now, Mahomes wasn't healthy. I know he had the foot injury, but what was the crazy stat that was out there where he ran for almost 500 pre-scramble or pre-throw yards, just scrambling.
I think it's an NFL record, not even a Super Bowl record. I think it was an NFL record, most yards ran before throwing, which is, it shows, because how many plays did he have to scramble all the way right and then come all the way back to the middle, and then like some of the miraculous throws he almost got off. Yeah, that was that wasn't surprising, but it's crazy to see that the Bucs had him scrambling in that manner. And again, I want to give him a little bit of credit because, like, first of all, his offensive line was completely unprepared. Like, they weren't ready for what the Bucs had, and obviously maybe they were outmanned because of the injuries, but Patrick, like, somehow was, like, finding ways to get throws off and, like, hitting receivers in the hand, throwing it sideways. Like, he was just chucking the ball, and a little bit of credit to him. But, yeah, the Bucs just absolutely dominated him, especially in the shotgun. Like, in the shotgun, you expect you have a little bit more time, and it was like the pass hits his hand, or the ball hits his hands, and you've got three guys in white jerseys around you.
Yeah, I think it really started to settle in around that fourth quarter, because I feel like that the Bucs, or not the Bucs, but the Chiefs, in my opinion, were double teaming Sue maybe a little bit more than they were double teaming Vita Vea. And the reason why I bring this up is because towards the end, the Bucs at some point, or the Chiefs at some point, had to make some type of adjustment, because Shaq Barrett was all over Patrick Mahomes the majority of the game. Yeah. And, he usually has Vea next to him. But if you get into that fourth quarter, I think the Chiefs were starting to realize, like, we got to start putting more pressure on this right side because they're coming at us more than the left side. So that left JPP and Sue on the left side. Do Sue put three hammers in the same drive against Kansas City? Now, against Mahomes in that fourth quarter. Now, one of them, they finally got him with roughing the passer. Yeah. And that's when Shaq, Sue, and JPP all sandwiched him. Yeah. And after that sandwich, it was pretty much a wrap, because on the very next play, Sue gets the sack, but he absolutely leveled Patrick Mahomes. And then he almost hit him again on that third down play. Or actually, he did, and that's where Mahomes was looking for the roughing the passer, because Sue did kind of hit him in the head, but the referee said play on and decided that wasn't warranted of a flag. But that defensive game plan, let's go back to last week. And Brian, I'm gonna ask your question here in a second. Let's go back to last week on this show. The one thing that I said that Tampa Bay was going to do, and they ended up doing it, was, if I shut down your main guy, will the others beat us in this game? Right. If we go back to the New Orleans game, they shut down Michael Thomas, and the only other real significant play that they got was the reverse trick play that the Bears used against the Saints, that the Saints used against the Bucs when you had Jameis Winston hit Traquan Smith. Yeah. After that, the Saints were pedestrian. If you go to the Green Bay game, yes, Devontae Adams had like 9 catches for like 67 yards and a touchdown. But if you watch the game, a lot of those catches and stuff were insignificant. Yeah. It was a catch here, a catch there, and then you have the touchdown, but that touchdown only lessen the gap, but you try to get the others to beat you. So outside of Marquez, Valdez Scantling getting that big touchdown catch, the others didn't do anything.
Yeah.
You go to this game against Kansas City, Tyreek Hill is the guy that torched Tampa Bay for 200 and some yards and 2 or 3 touchdowns in the first quarter.
And people couldn't stop talking about it before the game. Like, people could not stop talking about it before the game, including us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Tyreek Hill was shut down. So now the others has to come in. Now Travis Kelce had himself a game.
Yeah.
He had like 9 catches for 100 yards. But no Sammy Watkins, or barely hearing about Sammy Watkins.
Yeah.
You're barely hearing about Hardman. Everyone was talking about Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But everyone, for whatever reason, keeps forgetting that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers had the best run defense in all of football.
Yeah.
And you saw it again on Sunday because nobody was running the ball. Not even Patrick Mahomes was able to run the football successfully. So Todd Bowles and this defense, I don't know what was said. I don't know if it was Todd. I don't know if it was Tom Brady. I don't know if it was Bruce. But somebody sparked this defense, especially after the Washington game, where Tyler Heineke comes up and puts on a performance, and the Bucs got themselves a little bit of a scare. But then they pretty much dominate Drew Brees in the New Orleans game.
Yeah.
They dominate, for the most part, Aaron Rodgers in the Green Bay game. And then they dominated arguably the best quarterback not named Tom Brady right now in the NFL, and Patrick Mahomes. So, all the credit in the world, in my opinion, for as good as the offense was and they were making plays, the credit in all the world has to go to this defense. And this is not the second time for Tampa Bay. And we're going to talk about this later because, people love to not give my squad credit. At the end of the day, Tampa Bay has been in the Super Bowl twice and have put up 2 of maybe the most memorable defensive performances we've seen.
Yeah.
We go against Rich Gannon, who was the MVP, against the number 1 offense in football, and you picked him off 5 times and brought back 3 of them for touchdowns and sacked him like 6 times.
That was the Jerry Rice, Tim Brown Oakland team, right? Yeah, that was a potent
Jerry
offense.
Rice, Tim Brown, Jerry Porter, those guys.
Yeah.
Charlie Garner,
the running back. Yeah, that was a good offense.
Right, exactly. Brian just asked. He asked, "Do you guys think Mahomes still has a chance to pass Tom Brady?"
I think, honestly, Nick, all that talk was premature, man. I just feel like, that talk was like almost making the assumption that this game was over. And I thought, first of all, you see that a lot in the media, so you can't, there's nothing you can do to control that. But I think this narrative that, Patrick is going to get 2 in 2 years and he's right on pace for 6. And I think, like, that's just so premature, man. That's like, that's like saying, I just had a kid last year and my girl, she might be pregnant this year. So I'm catching up to you with 6 kids. And you're like, bro, you gotta, you're still a ways away from me here. So
right.
I know that's not the best example, but just like, I feel like all that talk was really premature, and I thought it was unnecessary pressure on Patrick Mahomes. And like, listen, the fact that his team showed up twice in a row to the Super Bowl, that really helps him. But I think everyone was sort of recognizing how ruthless this league is. That, like, listen, there's no guarantee this guy ever makes it ever again. I'm sorry to say that. If you're a Kansas City fan, I know you think you're in a really good position next year, and you are. Like, good for you. But the fact is, there's a chance that he may never go to the Super Bowl again. So let's just pump the brakes on, like, who the GOAT is until he at least gets 3, right, Nick? Like, you got to get at least 3 or 4 before you start trying to creep into the GOAT conversation.
Exactly. Steven asked, who's the greatest sports athlete of all time if it's not Tom Brady? Okay, here we go. You ready?
I don't think it's Tom Brady.
I just thought about this.
Yeah.
Okay. If we're talking about success,
yeah, Bill Russell, Serena Williams.
Okay, Bill Russell, Serena, Tom, Michael.
Yeah, certainly in the conversation. Tiger-ish.
Woods, right.
Yeah,
Because
Wayne.
Tom
Listen,
Brady-
Wayne. I know Wayne is a lot of individual awards, but Wayne Gretzky, I know he didn't have the most Stanley Cups, but Wayne is in that conversation too. So, yeah, I think a lot that was one of the weirder conversations of this week. Is Tom the greatest athlete of all time? It's like it doesn't have to be that. It doesn't have to be that, right? Like we could still recognize his greatness without having to have these weird conversations.
Right. Because here's what I'll say.
Mm-hmm.
Tom Brady, his success may put him. It's going to put him in this category. It's going to put him in the category, right?
Yeah.
But that's an athlete with success, because Tom Brady, let's just call it what it is not really that athletic.
No.
He just throws the ball great.
Yeah,
if we're talking about this, the same guy that ran like what was it, like a 5-something 40 at his 40 time at the combine, many moons ago.
Yeah.
And so he's not the most. If we're gonna talk about the greatest athlete as far as skills are concerned, it's not even a debate for me. Actually, it is, because it's gonna come for me. It's between, you mentioned it, Wayne Gretzky. And how about LeBron James?
LeBron, yeah, you got to put LeBron. If you're talking athleticism, right, let's be clear about what we're talking about here. If we're talking about athleticism and dominance in the sport, have we ever seen an athlete like LeBron?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I'm not taking nothing away from Michael. Obviously Michael Jordan is going to be in the category and whatnot, and as he should be. But I'm talking about a guy who has played 18 years in the NBA. The only real year that LeBron James has really been hurt was 2 years ago, his first year in LA.
Yeah. And they missed the playoffs,
Right, and they missed the playoffs. But look what he did the next year when he was healthy. Now, granted, they brought in AD, but they win the championship. Whenever LeBron James is in the playoffs, LeBron James has been money. Yep. Okay, if we can, for 5 seconds, because for some reason in America, we like to look at people's losses more than their wins, because everyone looks at LeBron James as a 6-time loser or 5-time loser in the NBA Finals?
Yeah, I think so.
I'm looking at a 4-time NBA champion.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
That to me, these are all like separate conversations, right? Like I'm like a stickler. I'm kind of a stickler about these types of conversations. Like I like to really draw the line about what we're talking about, right? So like, talk about greatest athlete of all time. Okay, so like, what's the criteria for the greatest athlete of all time? Well, somebody who's had the most success as an athlete. Well, okay, then we're talking Bill Russell, then we're talking Serena Williams, then we're talking Tom Brady. These are all, obviously Mike is in that conversation, Wayne Gretzky's in the conversation, Tiger Woods in the conversation.
Lemieux's in the conversation.
Certainly, yeah. And then baseball's got a couple different ones that you can throw in there, but talk about Pete, and I know Pete Rose is he didn't win a ton of World Series, but when you look at the numbers, like the guy's got overwhelming numbers. So again, that's a conversation I'm willing to have, right? But then like you're starting to get into conversations of like, okay, but then like, who is the best quarterback in the league who's played in 6 super? It's just like you start to break it down to the point where it's not even a conversation anymore. I am willing to talk about like, okay, now I think it's clearer, Nick, if we're sticking to football, who the greatest quarterback of all time is now. I think we've got our answer now. Right. I was willing to sort of have the conversation previously about Peyton and, obviously like throw some of the legends in there as well. But then when you look at the body of work and then how he did it, I mean, how many people, Nick, I'm sure you heard it more than I did, how many people from the New England, Boston area came to you after they signed and said, good luck, he's old, it's a system quarterback, and it wasn't just people in our inner circle. I mean, there was people in national media from that area saying, yeah, Tom will never win anything again, and we saw how that worked out.
Exactly. And because people are going to bring up Joe Montana.
Yeah.
People will still bring football. Football, in my opinion, is a funny sport because people will consider Dan Marino
Yeah.
one of the greatest passers or
Sure.
quarterbacks of all time,
Yeah.
and he never won a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's funny which sports we choose to want to talk about rings and what sports we don't want to. Because in baseball, think about baseball and to an extent football are really two sports that we don't talk about rings that much.
That's true. Yeah.
Like when you talk baseball, you're talking because obviously, when you play baseball, hitting a baseball has been deemed the hardest thing to do in all the sports.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And for a guy like, we talked a few weeks ago, the passing of Henry Aaron and how good he really was. And, you can say whatever you want, but Barry Bonds will forever be my favorite player in baseball that never donned the Yankee jersey. I just loved watching him hit. I love the approach that he had to the game. I love that he put fear in all of the pitchers. You can't say that about a lot of guys nowadays that's in the game, and I thought Barry Bonds was that guy. I'd put Sammy Sosa in that category. I would even, say what you want. I don't care about steroids, and I'll go ahead and say this because at the end of the day,
yeah. You and I can pump as much as we want. We're not going to be doing very well on the diamond.
Well, because right, exactly.
Yeah.
If you can't hit a baseball, you can't hit a baseball. There's all the steroids in the world is not going to improve you on hitting a baseball. And it's funny because I brought up this point so many years ago, and when I was having lunch with some of my friends, one of the friends' dad, who didn't even really talk to me or know me per se, echoed the same thing I've been telling my boys, the same thing. He was like, look, everyone's tweaking about these steroids.
Yeah.
But if you can't hit a baseball, no matter how swole you are, it's not going to make you any better.
No.
So that's why all this steroid talk and all this cheating talk, like, when you talk about Tom Brady, you're talking about a guy who supposedly deflated footballs and is so illegal. Okay, well, the NFL's new golden boy, what's his name, Aaron Rodgers, who takes no blame for anything when it comes to losses, admitted that he overinflates his footballs. But here comes everyone defending Aaron Rodgers like they usually do. Well, overinflating the football makes it harder to throw. However, that's an distinct advantage for Aaron Rodgers, though. If it is not a game-issued ball with the game-issued inflation of it, whether you overinflate it or you deflate it, bro, it's still cheating,
and they're giving you your choice. Yeah, they're giving you your choice. I don't think that was in the conversation as much as it should have been back in the Deflategate days, which is that people weren't understanding that each team had the autonomy to have their own balls, how they like it, right? And there was a regulation, but the regulation was a part of the inspection. So, like, if they inspected and made it to the sidelines, then those balls are free to use. So, and also, you have to take into consideration this when it comes to steroids, and this is not a popular conversation to have, but like, I liken this to like some of the weird shit that was going on in the 70s and 80s when it came to like Quaaludes and like these party drugs, and like everybody was doing them, and then like Bill Cosby is like the poster child for this movement, but he can't say, hey, everybody was doing this, all of your favorite celebrity friends and the Burt Reynolds of the world and all these people that we love and revere were doing it. And I look at that in the same conversation of steroids, because it's like, I think Barry isn't stuck in a really tough position, because people have to remember the timeline of what happened with Barry. I don't want to get too far off subject, but I think it's important to note that Barry didn't start, quote unquote, allegedly, however you want to code it. he didn't start until he started seeing what was happening in Oakland with Mark McGwire and Jose Canseco and Sammy Sosa and some of these other guys that, remember, Barry Bonds was a 5-tool hitter with Pittsburgh, a guy who could hit, like he could hit really well. But right. I think the league as a whole was literally, there was needles right off the dugout. You could just literally poke yourself and move on with your day. And I think Barry was like, all right, I'll do that too. And I think because of his success as a result, he's become this poster child as the steroid abuser. So I think it's unfair. And I agree with you. If you can't hit a baseball, I don't think steroids going to do very much for you.
Yeah, Brian says he said to my comment that that's not true. Of course, if you can't hit a baseball, steroids doesn't work. But if you can and you're on steroids, then you break records. Then he goes on to say that Barry Bonds doesn't break that record without steroids. I don't believe that.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Do you know that Barry Bonds only had 1 year
over
that he hit
40,
over
right? Or 50 over 50
home runs?
It was that 60 or the 72
and it was
year.
The 73
73
year,
year, yeah.
That's the only year Barry Bonds didn't hit for over 50 home runs.
Yeah. He had longevity.
On,
he didn't do it in a 10-year span. He did it throughout his whole career.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's my point. That's usually my biggest argument when it comes to that. It's the fact that, Bonds was consistent his entire career. It's not like Brady Anderson.
Right.
Brady Anderson, what was he like? Maybe he hit like 15 home runs a year off the leadoff spot, and then 1 year just out of the clear-cut blue, he just happened to drop a 50 spot, and then went back to 15 and 20 home runs. That's suspicious.
Yeah.
Well, if you're giving me a guy who's hitting over 300, being walked 5 million times a season, but can still drop 40 home runs in a year that Barry Bonds did at least, 4 or 5 times when he was in San Francisco? Dude, you're kidding me, dude.
And let me clear this up, Nick. Because I'm sorry, who was it that asked the question? I'm sorry, Nick.
That's my boy Brian.
Brian, let me just be clear about what we're saying here. I'm not saying that anybody could step. I'm saying that everybody at the time, pretty much everybody at the time, was juicing. I mean, I would really highly suggest you watch. It's a really long documentary. It's called Baseball by Ken Burns. It's a 10-part, almost 12-hour documentary on the history of baseball. And I think around chapter 7 or 8 is when they get into this. Listen, I understand what you're saying, that not everybody can step on the street and hit a baseball, and that's fine, even if they do steroids. But what I'm saying is that everybody at the time there was a vast majority of players that were taking performance enhancing drugs, and they didn't set records. So I think the more important point to make is that if Barry Bonds set records with steroids, there was still a lot of players, the vast majority of the players, who weren't setting records and doing steroids and could hit a baseball, right? So we're admitting that both Barry Bonds and the rest of the field can hit a baseball. But what I'm saying is, when we're evening out the playing field and Barry Bonds is taking steroids and everybody else is taking steroids, and by the way, it just so happens that, the only people who were setting records back then were the steroid users, but still were really darn good hitters even before. I mean, Mark McGwire, Tony La Russa, when he was in Oakland, said he had one of the most beautiful swings he'd ever seen, and that this guy before the steroids was a really good hitter. But again, just because somebody can hit a ball and take steroids doesn't mean they're going to set records. The people who set records are special. These are special players. Barry Bonds is a special player. I think it was Willie Mays who said, Hank Aaron, who said he's a real home run king, because I think he understood that, listen, this kid had a special eye. I mean, Barry Bonds' eye was as special as you will ever see, because you remember the era where, they were intentionally walking this guy with the bases loaded. This wasn't a steroid thing that made Barry Bonds such a dangerous hitter. It was the fact that he had such a, compact swing and plus he had an amazing eye for both breaking balls and fastballs, and he just was a dominant hitter. So Yeah, I don't want to stray too much off the subject here, but I just think, I think the Barry Bonds stuff, we're going to find out a lot more about that era, and we're going to get more numbers and context about who was doing what and when, because I think soon enough we'll see that, like, people are singling out Barry Bonds for something that I think the vast majority of the league was doing.
Yeah, dude.
Sorry to get off the subject there.
Steven says if Bonds gets in the Hall, Rose should also.
Absolutely. I believe that. That's my
do
opinion.
you?
That's
because
my opinion.
I
yeah.
don't.
Yeah.
I don't.
You don't think it's the
I'm
same
maybe
thing?
one of the few people that don't.
Yeah.
And the only reason why I say that is because Pete Rose did something that got him banned from baseball.
Yeah.
Something that was no matter how bad people want to try and argue it, Pete Rose unfortunately did something that punishable by expulsion from baseball. They have the evidence. They proved he did it, and he got the sentence.
Yeah.
So, no, was Pete Rose a great player? Most definitely. No one's arguing that.
Yeah.
But, man, like you know what Pete Rose is going to get? And we'll get back to football here in a sec, but what Pete Rose is going to get, he's going to get the Ron Santo treatment.
Yeah,
post-mortem.
Post-mortem, like after he's dead, then like let's give it to him now.
After he's dead, they're gonna be like, you know what, maybe because that's what they did to Ron.
Yeah,
dude, there was not a guy in baseball that got the biggest push to get into the Hall of Fame by fans and writers and everybody else than Ron Santo. And baseball was just like, we just don't feel like his records or his stats are good enough, so we're not gonna put him in.
Yeah.
Did not 6 months after he died. We held a special. Vote. We're gonna put him in. Bitch, you couldn't do that when he was alive, dude. Yeah. You waited till he died to have the special vote. Like that doesn't make sense.
When it comes to Pete Rose, Nick, I've got a really weird and complex thing because I have a special soft spot for Pete Rose because I don't think people really understand the full story about Pete Rose. The reason why the league is so adamantly against Pete Rose and to this day is because he didn't bow down to them. Like he did not. They basically gave him an option to come out and really basically come out and admit guilt and basically sort of try and PR the situation a little bit. And he decided not to. And a lot of that had to do with his problem with the league and the commissioner as a whole. But even Bud Selig had admitted that, there have been crazier things that have happened than Pete Rose making the Hall of Fame. I just think that to what Steven's point is, that if Barry gets in, you can put in Pete. I group those things in sort of the same category. I know it's not steroids with Pete, but I just group it in the same category because I do believe that really, man, I think the Hall of Fame should be about what happened on the diamond. I really do, because it's a really slippery slope, Nick. I mean, I don't know if people know, but a lot of these people in the Hall of Fame did not like black people very much, or women, or any other let's say any other colored shade in this country. Like, it's a really slippery slope, man. If you really, really want to go down that road, you're gonna be we're gonna be breaking a lot of busts in the Hall of Fame, because Ty Cobb, from what I heard, was not a very nice guy, and specifically to black people. So I just think that, again, it's like such a super slippery slope to say, hey, this guy was a really mean person, or he did something really bad off the diamond. I just think it's like, you know what, man? Pete Rose is one of the greatest hitters of all time, and I think he deserves to be in the Hall. That's my opinion.
Exactly, but we'll get back.
We'll get to that.
I know we kind of went off it because we were talking about the greatest athlete, but we'll get back to that. But back to the biggest game all week. Your Super Bowl 55 champs.
Yes.
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Because now we gotta ask the question, what's next? What's next for both teams? What's next for the NFL?
Right.
We're talking now. We'll get into some draft talk coming up here soon. We're talking like borderline. I know when we got off the show last Saturday, about a few hours after that, I know you got it and I got it. We both got the notification and where it looked like Carson Wentz was about to get traded
Thank God.
here soon, and it looked like it came down to the Bears and the Colts, and we were told that it will be imminent that a deal was made by Monday. It's now Saturday the 13th, and no deal is yet to be made, so I don't know what the hang-up is. And I'll tell you this, I think the hang-up really is in Philadelphia.
It is, yeah.
Because I think the Eagles, remember, the Eagles are the same team that when Nick Foles won the Super Bowl, said we want 2 1s and 2 2s if you want to trade for Nick Foles.
Yeah, that's right.
Really?
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Okay, he went on an incredible run,
Yeah.
but are we really going to give up 2 1s and 2 2s for Nick Foles?
Yeah.
Like, really?
That's silly.
And so, you know, that kind of leads into, you know, the carousel that is, you know, the free agency market,
Right.
because we just saw J.J. Watt get released.
Yeah. Which that was a no-brainer. That was a no-brainer, man. Like, the fact of the matter is that's going to save the Texans, I think, something like $14 million this year. That's a no-brainer, man.
Exactly. And now the question is, where should J.J. Watt go? You know, there's Bears fans saying maybe he should come to Chicago. I've heard maybe that he might want to go to Pittsburgh and play with T.J. Watt.
I'm telling you, the Packers. I said it 3 weeks ago.
They might be coming.
I'm telling you, I said it 3 weeks ago. The Packers. I think he wants to go back to Wisconsin, man. I think they'll have the money for it. I think he loves Wisconsin a lot. I think he'll go back there because remember, him and Aaron Rodgers are pretty buddy as well. So I said it even before the release notice got out that I think he's going to go back to Green Bay.
Steven says if J.J. Watt goes to the Bucs, just hand Brady another Super Bowl ring.
They don't even need him though. That's another thing. Like the Bucs don't really need him. Like why would you even take him?
I think the only way J.J. Watt will make sense in Tampa is if Tampa and Shaq Barrett can't come up with a new deal, which I think is going to happen. That Shaq is going to stay in Tampa
because Brady's going to give up some money. Evans is going to give up some money. You know, they'll find people to restructure because there's a lot of guys. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. It's Barrett. You got Leonard Fournette. You got Godwin. You've got who else am I missing there? Sue. There's another defensive guy in there as well. Not Levante David, is it?
Yep, Levante
David. Yeah, that's a lot of unrestricted free agents.
They do, but the fact that Mike Evans is willing to restructure his contract now for the 3rd year, and then it sounds like Tom Brady might actually do the same thing, where he'll take a lot of his money and sign a bonus to free up some space. It sounds like the Buccaneers are going to run it again. They're going to try and run it back and get everyone to stay and whatnot. I think the biggest name out of all the names that Tampa has in free agency, I think the one that sticks out is what's going to happen with Chris Godwin, because a lot of people believe that Godwin is going to go out and get number 1 wide receiver money if he doesn't want to come back. And that now leads into what the next story is that some guy from the New York Post, I don't even know I can't remember what his name is now suggesting that the Buccaneers could go after Odell Beckham Jr. and bring him into Tampa Bay. And I am going to be the first to say that I'm not for that move. I'm not for it, dude.
Yeah.
Like,
a lot of money too, man.
I don't want to put I'm not going to put what Tom did for Antonio Brown in the same category as what
Odell needs.
Maybe everyone's trying to fish with Odell Beckham Jr.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because I think the difference is Antonio Brown just went through a streak where maybe he was surrounded by a lot of yes men and didn't have nobody that believed in him and didn't think, you know, he can come back, and Tom Brady was the only guy, and knowing that you was going to win a championship, you know, he, stayed out of trouble and acted straight and never complained about getting catches or anything like that. I think that's a little different. With Odell Beckham Jr., the Browns were seemingly better without him than they were with him. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I'm not denying the talent of Odell, but I don't know. It's something about the move that where if the Buccaneers have to give up assets to bring in Odell Beckham Jr. in a sense where maybe Tampa Bay doesn't necessarily need Odell, I'm against the move. I'm not for the move. I think it'll be a bad mistake by Tampa. I would focus on bringing back Godwin.
Yeah.
Try to bring back Antonio Brown. You know, you're going to bring back there's a chance that Leonard Fournette's going to stay, So I feel like a lot of these guys want to stay. I think the only one that's trying to break the bank and wants the long-term deal is Shaq Barrett. And I think Shaq Barrett is going to get paid. And I think Jason Light has done a really good job so far. So I think he'll figure it out. But if Tampa Bay is able to bring this team back next year, especially with the momentum of how they played against the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, dude, Tampa Bay can be really dangerous next year.
Yeah.
Because think about it, the whole secondary is young and they're all on their rookie contracts.
Yeah. And really, I mean, the most important thing for the Bucs is that, like, they had a so-so, regular season, and they got it done when it mattered, right? So I think like that gives you even more of a confidence boost if you're Jason Light. Is that like, okay, all I have to do is put a team on because we don't know what the playoff seeding is going to look like next year. We don't know if it's going to go back to the first round bye for both the first and second seeds, or we don't know what it's going to look like next year. So I think most importantly right now, like, it's about just getting the players back. I mean, like, listen, if let's say in an alternate universe where the Bucs lose the Super Bowl, and you're like, oh man, we got all these impending free agents. I mean, probably Lenny probably doesn't come back. You're probably thinking, oh, you know what, Shaq Barrett, you could make him walk, and we'll put the money elsewhere. But I think now that you've won, it just makes sense to bring everybody back. I think like Godwin, man. Godwin, I wouldn't put it past him to sign a 1-year deal. Honestly, I wouldn't put him past him to say, because remember, like, the Bucs are going to have financial flexibility in a few years if and when Tom leaves or retires. So, you have yourself in a position here where the money's being tied up, and he's letting you possibly take some of that by restructuring. And the fact that Mike Evans wants to restructure basically tells me, I think what Mike Evans was really doing there was saying, I'm going to give some of my money to Chris, because Godwin clearly is a really important piece to the offense, and we see how the offense looks without him when he's missed games this year, and they've really relied on guys like Scotty Miller and some, obviously AB wasn't always around when Godwin was out as well. So I think it would be really interesting, but I think it's a no-brainer for the Bucs. Like, you bring everybody back. You convince the agents that, what, the Shaq Barrett thing might be the toughest one, I agree. But, like, look at the market right now. Does Shaq Barrett want to go to, who has cap space? Does he want to go to the Jets right now? Does he want to go to, the Jaguars, the Eagles? Like, no, nobody. I don't think anybody in their right mind is going to give him the suggestion to take the max deal and go somewhere where you're going to be basically wallowing for the rest of your career. So I think it makes sense for him to get a deal. I think the big problem is he's put up those numbers that are going to basically give your agent the idea that, man, we could be talking top 3 pass rusher money here over the last couple of years. So, and that's, you and I both know, that's big money. That's quarterback money. That's some real big money. But yeah, I just think, Tampa Bay has a really, really good shot at getting back there. I think, but again, really the most important part is, remember the health stuff was, other than Vita Vea, and again, nicks and bruises here to the offense and some of the offensive line stuff as well. They stayed pretty healthy throughout the year. Tom stayed healthy throughout the year. And then, at the end of the day, when you can keep that guy on for 16 games, you're gonna be putting yourself in a pretty darn good position. So I think Tampa Bay has to find the money, and the cap is going to go up a little bit this year too. So they'll have a little bit of extra help on that as well.
There was something I wanted to bring up. Oh, I know who I wanted to bring up. I wanted to bring up number 78 because
Big Donovan.
Of all the controversy.
Because
of all the controversial statements that I have either made or I'm going to make here in the next few minutes. People can once again, everyone calls me a homer, but you want to argue with me, and I'm just going to throw you out, stats that make sense. And if you use the eye test, says something else. I'm not taking nothing away from Justin Jefferson. I'm not taking nothing away from Justin Herbert. All I'm saying is you're going to give me a guy who should have been a top 5 pick, fell down to number 13 to Tampa Bay, and all he did all year was give up 1 sack to Khalil Mack, got hip tossed, and never gave up a sack the rest of that. He played every game, played in every snap, and gave up 1 sack and won the Super Bowl. And minus everything he did in the playoffs, you're going to tell me a rookie offensive lineman? Because I can tell you times when Jarek Willis Jr. in Cleveland gave up sacks. I can tell you when Mekhi Becton gave up sacks. I can tell you when the revolving door, Andrew Thomas, gave up multiple sacks. But the wall that is Tristan Wirfs only let Tom Brady get hit or sacked 1 time in over 1,700 snaps. And I don't think that he should be deserving of being Offensive Rookie of the Year because Justin Herbert is a touchdown and he threw for 4,300 yards and that. And look at Justin Jefferson, what he did. Again, because this is going to now lead into my next controversial statement. You can't tell me nothing that the 2021 Tampa Bay Buccaneers in front of your own face has put up the greatest defensive performance in Super Bowl history, and you just don't know it. And a lot of people, I said it on my Facebook the other day, and 80 comments later, everybody's trying to come up with their own criteria to make their own point. So let me go ahead with my mouth because I hate typing to make my point. Let me go ahead and make my point here. You can't tell me another time what a quarterback in his prime has ever been shut down by a defense that he torched literally almost 2 months ago.
Yeah.
You can't. Patrick Mahomes, that we respectfully call Jesus on this show, has never not thrown a touchdown in a single game in his entire career.
That's pretty crazy, man.
On the biggest stage of them all, he did not throw a touchdown against the defense that everybody and their mama was saying was going to get torched by Tyreek Hill, that was going to get torched by Hardman, that was going to get torched by Sammy Watkins, that was going to get run on by Clyde Edwards-Helaire, that was going to get caught on by Travis Kelce. The same defense that gave up 9 catches for 200 yards and 2 touchdowns to Tyreek Hill to Jesus Mahomes in 1 quarter gave up no touchdowns and sacked Mahomes like 5 times and picked him off and made him look like crap. You can throw at me that, well, Nick, he had turf toe. 500 scrambling yards before he throws the football lets me know his toes seemed to be fine when he was running around. Well, Nick, he was missing a lot of his offensive linemen. Whose fault is that? I look at results. So here's the results. The results are Patrick Mahomes in the TD category is a fat 0. Patrick Mahomes in the quarterback rating category was probably the lowest of his entire career.
And I believe this is the first time Patrick Mahomes led team has scored less than 10 points.
Let's bring that up. Less than 10 points to a Patrick Mahomes led team. The Kansas City Chiefs all year didn't lose a game by more than 8 points. Until Sunday.
And he actually in his career, the last time he got beat by double digits was at Texas Tech. So he as well has never lost a game by less than, I believe it was like 5 or 8 points, whatever it is. So when you take that into consideration, that's pretty crazy.
Right, because dude. Let me look at and we were talking about this a little bit before the show. But let me bring up some of the argumentative points that everyone's trying to bring.
Talking points.
So my first shot that I threw at, because I just love trolling them the most, are Bears fans. Because most Bears fans my age were not even alive or like me were 2 years old when the Bears won the Super Bowl. But since we want to keep going back there, no other team, God forbid, I don't, dude, and maybe you can help me out on this, but dude, Chicago drives me nuts sometimes. whenever you say that there might be a player that could potentially be better than the great Michael Jordan, oh, well, like, God forbid it can't happen. And look no further than the Chicago Bears, because every time you talk about a defense that might have actually been better or may have had a better performance than the 1985 Bears that a lot of my friends were either two or not even born when it happened, without Google, you couldn't even tell me who the Patriots quarterback was that year.
Yeah,
you couldn't even do it without Google.
Yeah.
Most of them couldn't do it without Google. So let me help you out. A New England Patriots team that probably should not have even been in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, didn't they beat somebody who was way better that year? I wasn't born either.
I almost want to say the Miami Dolphins.
It wasn't Miami, because Miami was the only team to beat the Bears during the regular season. But yeah, you're right. I think it was the Dolphins. Yeah.
Okay, so a team that technically probably should not have been in the Super Bowl got absolutely outclassed by arguably the best team in the Super Bowl, or the best team all year that year were the 1985 Bears. Okay. Then I was told, well, what about the 2000 Baltimore Ravens? That team, that New York Giants team was led by Kerry Collins. Are you telling me that Kerry Collins at any point is a better quarterback than Patrick Mahomes? At the age of 25, nonetheless? No. So stop bringing me up the 2000 Baltimore Ravens. So then I get told, well, what about the 2000 and what was it, like the 2013 Seattle Seahawks that beat Peyton Manning? Even though Peyton Manning was great that year, he was past his prime, and the man was one sack away from having his career ended when he just got off missing a whole year.
Wasn't that the
with
Super
his
Bowl?
neck injury.
Was that the Super Bowl where the ball went over his head and into the end zone on the first snap, or was that against Carolina?
Yes.
Oh, that was
yes, that was. I think that one was against.
No, that was
Seattle.
against Seattle, because that was the first play of the game. It goes into the end zone. Yeah.
Yes, but you can't argue that. So here I am saying, I just named you 3 quarterbacks because everyone's like, well, Nick, what about the Giants when they beat the undefeated Patriots that year? Tom Brady still found himself in the goddamn end zone. Here's my problem.
And that wasn't let's make it clear, that wasn't like some miraculous defensive performance by the Giants. That was, remember, the David Tyree catch, and that was like miraculous play by the team. But I think we're talking about like defensive prowess here.
Thank you. That's all. And I'm only talking the Super Bowl, but I am talking about the hottest quarterback in the entire NFL,
maybe ever, right, Nick? I mean, let's be real here. The hype around Patrick Mahomes, I mean, the aura around Patrick Mahomes, let's just say even before last Sunday, I mean, during our show last week, at that time, the aura around this guy, I mean, we're talking about some of the gaudy numbers that we were talking about, which is like never lost by double digits, has always, had more than a touchdown. His team has never scored less than double digits, like all of these things. And then the aura around him, 2 straight Super Bowl appearances, and just, never lost a playoff game outside of overtime. It's the aura was, I think, the most hype we've ever seen around a quarterback ever, I think.
Thank you. And all Tampa Bay did was go out there and make him look pedestrian. Yeah, and a lot of times when he did like that. That's the thing that makes you even more impressed is some of the, and we talked about it before the show, like that's how you know this guy is a fucking baller, because some of these throws he was able to get off, some of the escapes. I mean, if Kansas City can catch the damn ball, we might be talking. I mean, I don't want to get too deep into the weeds about what happened during the game, but it was a 21 or it ended up being a 21-point deficit, right? Like, or more around 21 to 28 points. And if I'm not mistaken, Kansas City was stopped in the red zone 3 times and turned over the ball in the red zone 3 times. So like without that defensive performance,
you're looking at a way close. I mean, we're not even talking a different game. We're talking almost tie or one possession game. So, like, I think it's important to understand that, like, this isn't because Patrick Mahomes sucks or because Kansas City sucks. Kansas City's a damn good offense. I mean, we've seen it the last 3 or 4 years, and I think it makes it even more impressive for Tampa Bay because we talked about how many. I mean, like, we talked about it with Sean. Remember, it was like Sean was trying to tell us, weapons, and Kansas City has weapons, but like Gronk isn't really a weapon, right? And then like who scores 2 touchdowns in the Super Bowl,
exactly.
and stuff like that.
Exactly. I'm glad you brought that up because Travis Kelce, like I said, Travis Kelce can make catches. He had good numbers, but the guy who ended up getting outperformed and performed better was Rob Gronkowski.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And think about it like this. Even though Kelce got his catches, dude, give all the props in the world to both Devin White and Levante David, who, when it counted the most, blanketed Travis Kelce, who usually in the red zone is Patrick Mahomes' favorite target.
Yeah. And the safeties did a really good job with him, too. Safeties were making sure everything was in front of them.
Exactly. And the funny part is I want to talk about the pass that Mahomes had when he was about to go down and threw the ball like 45 yards that hit Hardman in the face.
Yeah.
If he catches that, it's a totally different ball game because I think it was still 31-9 maybe around then when that happened. But it's like no, if you told me, let me say this. If I told you last week, going into the game, that Patrick Mahomes would get no touchdowns against the Bucs defense, oh, dude, I would have been ripped a new one left and right.
I think it was.
See, that's
I think
what
it was
I'm talking about. You such a homer, and you're this, and you're that. Right?
Yeah, the odds on that were really, really crazy on betting lines. Like I think it was like something like plus 1,200. I think it was plus 1,200 that he would throw less than one touchdown pass. So I think even Vegas was like, "There's no way this guy's going to throw at least one."
Right. And guess and you know what? Here's the crazy part. The crazy part is, for what it's worth, Patrick Mahomes in 2 Super Bowls hasn't really looked that great.
Yeah, because
I know, crazy, right?
Yeah, I mean,
if Patrick Mahomes didn't flip the Jesus switch last year, San Francisco dominates him last year the same way Tampa Bay dominated him this year.
Yeah, really. I mean, let's be honest about that point, Nick. It's really like if the San Francisco 49ers secondary doesn't give up that long Tyreek Hill third down where they're at midfield third down and he gets a 40-plus yard bomb because of a missed coverage, we might not even be talking about Patrick Mahomes in that conversation of, remember before the game, they were like, he can catch the GOAT. If he wins, then Tom will only be at 6 and he'll be at 2 and he'll have his whole career ahead of him. And again, you switch a couple things around and remember the whole playoffs last year, Nick, Kansas City was constantly falling behind. They were behind 17 to Texans, 14 to and the next thing you know, he comes back and wins. Yeah, Tennessee. So, I think that's a valid point, which is like, it's not like he had a Jesus-like game last year. He just had a really, a miraculous comeback. And I don't think it was like a performance, though.
Right. And he did the same thing this year. The only difference was he tried to flip the Jesus switch, and the Buccaneers were just not having it.
Yeah.
They weren't having it, dude. And that's why I went from really trolling my friends because my friends on my Facebook love to argue with me when it comes to certain sports points.
Yeah.
But as I was going into conversation, I'm like, wait a minute, I'm actually making sense here because you can't tell me a time where a quarterback in his prime got shut down by a defense that Tampa Bay was underrated, or was not underrated. They were underdogs going into the game.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are thinking, oh man, Tampa Bay had a great run. Like, dude, you see the same thing I see on my Facebook. what is some of the stuff people say about Tampa Bay? We should have never belonged there in the first place. It should have been New Orleans versus Green Bay. This is Aaron Rodgers' year. Like, everyone loves hanging on every word that Colin Cowherd says, right? But this is the same dumbass who, in the beginning of the season, in those first 6, 7, 8 weeks before the Buccaneers went on that little losing streak before the bye week, had Tampa Bay as the top 5 team in the NFL, right?
Yep.
Then they kind of fell off in the 3-game winning streak. But then as the weeks went on, when they kind of struggled a little bit against the Washington football team, they was like, yeah, I tell you what, man, Tampa Bay's lucky they won the game because Tyler Heinicke was out there really looking good, and Drew Brees already beat him twice, so they're gonna go ahead and get smoked by Drew Brees, especially stupid ass, dumb ass, moronic ass Packer fans, and I'm never gonna stop hating on them until the day I die. So those were the main idiots.
Yep.
The main idiots, right? Because I'm not gonna make fun of Saints fans if you're taking on Tampa Bay, you beat us twice. Of course you're going to think you're going to win. So I'm not going to hate on you guys for that. But these idiot Packer fans that exist, let's bring these dumbasses back on the light, because I'm not done with y'all yet. Oh, it'd be okay because they had just got done luckily beating the Rams because, Aaron Donald was hurt. Because the way Tampa Bay played, if Aaron Donald was healthy, Tampa Bay would have beaten the Rams at home, let alone beating Green Bay in Green Bay. So, but we're not going to talk about that, though, because, there's not a football player in the NFL that gets the biggest free pass than Aaron Punk, overrated bitch-ass Rodgers. Not a single guy in the NFL gets the biggest free pass than Aaron Rodgers, right? So let's keep going. We beat the Saints. Oh, well, it's going to be over for you guys this week anyway because y'all not coming up to Green Bay and beat Green Bay, but we beat you in week 6. Well, that doesn't really matter, man, because you think Aaron Rodgers going to have the same exact game with the same exact result, blah, 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 blah. Aaron Rodgers, his stat line might look great, but if you watch the game, Aaron Rodgers did not look that great in that football game.
No.
But here goes the same Tampa Bay haters, mostly Packer fans. Well, Tom Brady gets all the calls. Look, Sean Murphy bunting held Lazaro on that interception. That should have been holding. Hey, man, referees are human. They miss calls, okay? No. But then the same stupid-ass Packer fans turn around and say, well, how could you not call that holding but call the Tyler Johnson holding? I don't know. Helen Keller could have told you that Tyler Johnson's jersey was being pulled when he was going for the football. Yeah. Come on, bro. Dude, I swear to God, dude, there's not a team, in my opinion, that got hated on more than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this year.
Yeah, now that you mention it, you're kind of right because, there was that whole hoopla about, the calls, which I agree. Some of those calls were pretty soft. I think one in particular was the one where Matthew ended up picking off the ball and then it came back on the because of a defensive pass interference. But people are pretending like that doesn't happen in football. I think it's silly. I think it's silly to say that the refs were somehow involved or wanted Tampa Bay to win. I mean, listen, you already know conspiracy theorists are gonna find they're gonna find something, right? It's like, well, they were in Tampa Bay and they couldn't let Tampa Bay lose in Tampa Bay. It's too good of a story, as if somehow the story benefits the league, or as if the story of Kansas City winning in Tampa Bay isn't somehow also a really good story. It's just, I think it's silly. But I would be remiss to say if I didn't, I thought the refereeing was pretty poor in the Super Bowl on both sides. I thought the calls were, first of all, I thought there was a few late calls. I thought there was a few flags that came out a few seconds late, which is always a little bit. But again, you're right. Refs are human, man. That's a really big stage. And I think 2 of those refs were in their first Super Bowl ever. So this is the biggest stage for the players. It's also the biggest stage for the refs. I do think, again, there's something that can be done here about the refereeing in this league. The problem is, man, with some of these calls, you could be throwing flags on every damn play if we're talking about some of these calls, right? And I think, there has to be some sort of middle ground here, because I do agree that like that type of stuff does change games, but like people are pretending like it hasn't changed games the last 25 weeks here. Like we've been watching game after game is affected by a flag or two here or there, and that's just like how the game goes. So I think anybody who's saying that like Tampa Bay benefited, like listen, I thought there was a few calls that Kansas City got that were weird too. I think there was one in particular on the defensive side of the ball, but yeah, I also like all of that stuff is just made to really take credit away from where the credit is really due. So that's why I try not to do that, because it's like at the end of the day, like if you're going to complain about the refs and the soft calls, I think you've got a different argument here than to like be mad at Tampa Bay or be mad at Tom Brady or Tampa Bay fans. Like, listen, dude, if you've got a beef with the refs, take that up with the league.
Exactly. So I'm super happy. I
better
love
be.
the results. and at the end of the day, dude, anyone that was upset with the game on Sunday had money on Kansas City. Yeah. And I don't feel sorry for you, because if you were listening or you were paying attention to anything I've said on social media, and we'll bring up the clip and we'll go back to the show. Please, months ago. Yeah, I told you Tampa Bay was winning the Super Bowl. So if you didn't listen, that's your own personal fault. If you didn't make any money, that's your own personal fault. And to all the Green Bay Packer fans out there, that's how you win a Super Bowl. Something y'all might never know nothing about anytime soon.
The next time Jordan Love, when Jordan Love is under center for them next year, and Aaron Rodgers is somewhere in San Francisco, I still think that's going to happen this offseason. I don't know why. That gets us into a little bit more of the QB carousel, because I want to talk to you a little bit more about this. But the more I'm pondering on it, the more I'm thinking like, listen, it's hard to hide the fact that the whole Jordan Love thing happened last year, and that the Packers went out of their way to not only not bring in more help for Aaron Rodgers and more help for the defense, but actually found what they think is the eventual replacement. And the clock is just ticking. Like, again, like no matter what, like if you are a Green Bay Packers fan, you have to be able to look in the mirror and admit that the clock is ticking on Aaron Rodgers. Even if the clock is ticking, in another year, 2 years, whatever it may be, the organization has made it very clear they see Jordan Love in a quarterback position very soon, or else you don't make that type of trade. So we talked about it last week. There's only a few teams right now who have the financial flexibility to make a crazy move happen. San Francisco is one of them, though, because they're going to have Richard Sherman coming off the books. They're going to be able to get rid of Garoppolo's money. They've got a couple of more cuts that they can make that will free up space, and they could easily take on Aaron Rodgers with a package of picks. I don't necessarily see it happening right now, but I just for some reason I just have a feeling that this offseason is going to get crazy here soon, because like the Carson Wentz thing, and I'm glad you mentioned it before. From what I'm reading, it sounds like Philadelphia is upset at the package that they're receiving, and that they're like really trying hard to drive home that they want this Uber package for Carson Wentz, and teams aren't biting. And one of the things is like I'm just minorly impressed with Ryan Pace and the Bears that they didn't trade 8 first-round picks for this guy already, because that's just something that they do. So to me, man, I think it's impressive because the Eagles are clearly looking for something that they're not going to get, and there's better, and that's another thing. There's better options out there. Like Deshaun Watson is still available right now. You're still going to be able to. I mean, like I saw the Sam Darnold thing. To me, man. What was it, a second-round pick? I think that's pretty high for Darnold at this point, man. I think if you tell me the Bears didn't get Carson Wentz, but they got Sam Darnold for a future like third or a fourth or fifth, give me that all day. But a first or second for Sam Darnold right now, man, you're just basically redrafting him, right? Because he's so young. You're just basically redrafting him into your system and hoping things happen. But you lose an asset. Like the Bears, for example, man, that's a real big thing about it. Like the Bears don't have draft picks to give away. We need those draft picks. We don't have the players to be able to say, yeah, go ahead and take 2 draft picks for Sam Darnold. So that's why I'm wondering, the rumor with Carson Wentz was that it was going to be Wentz for a package of picks and an offensive player. Originally, a lot of people were saying it's Tariq Cohen. Actually, a Philadelphia journalist said it was going to be Tariq Cohen. And then Tariq Cohen, he ended up tweeting later on in the day, no, I just talked to my GM and my coach. I'm good. I'm here in Chicago. And then David Montgomery yesterday had a badly timed tweet where he was like, I really love Chicago. It's been awesome. It's been awesome playing in Chicago. And then Twitter went nuts. And then poor guy, he probably stepped away from his phone and then went back to his phone and had 35,000 notifications that said, what the hell's going on? So he had to tweet, no, I'm just telling you guys I love Chicago. Like, I'm not going anywhere. So it's a weird position to be in, but the QB carousel, it's about to happen very soon because because the Super Bowl is around. It's that marker,
I'm gonna go ahead and say this. I saw a report earlier today where some people are saying that the Buccaneers think that they're successor to Tom Brady whenever he decides to go is supposed to be Blaine Gabbert. Yeah. I don't believe that.
How do you feel?
Dude, I do. You know what? I'm not even going to spend more than 30 seconds on it because it has to be a blatant cover-up.
Sure.
But the problem is Tom Brady is talking as if he's not retiring anytime soon.
Right.
And one thing and I only saw a little snippet of it because I was dashing, but I was watching it. They were talking about, Tom Brady was lost in the sauce on Wednesday, I think it was.
Oh, yeah.
It was either Wednesday or Wednesday. Smoke. And when I was watching Around the Horn, they were talking to Bob Ryan. And Bob Ryan said something that I thought was very interesting. Was the fact of this Tom Brady you saw on Wednesday or third, I think it was Wednesday when they was in the parade, and he's out there drunk as a skunk, and he tossed the Lombardi Trophy. Which, by the way, did you see? I don't know if you saw it, but did you see some lady whose family invented the Lombardi Trophy said they wanted an apology from Tom Brady because if that would have fallen in the water, it was disrespectful to her family or something like that. I was like, shut your stupid ass up. You're just trying to get clout and airtime. That's all that is. Shut up. It was caught. It's still in Tampa. It's not going anywhere. It'll be fine. But Bob Ryan said, dude, Tom Brady was having the most fun that he had in this celebration with Tampa than he did in the previous 6 he had with New England. Yeah. You could tell that this locker room was wide open. Bruce Arians is up there with curse-laced post-game celebration speeches because he too was drunk as a skunk up there just pounding Bud Lights and told Shaq Barrett and told Levante David and told Chris Godwin that you're not effing going anywhere. You guys are staying right here. Yeah. He told them you're not going anywhere. Yeah. He told, he's out there saying we effing did it and goddamn right and nobody gave us a shot. And I mean, just the whole team was lost in the sauce, okay? Yeah. But it's the most fun that the greatest of all time has had. And guess what? I believe it. If you look at those New England teams, dude, you can't crack Bill Belichick to get out a smile. Yeah. You win the Super Bowl, and he's worried about playing for next year. Dude, enjoy the flipping moment, bro.
Was it Corey Dillon? I think Corey Dillon had said in New England you're only allowed to have fun during the parade. And that's basically the only time you can have fun. And then, but also, can we give some flowers to Bruce Arians about how he managed this team and Tom Brady this year? We've seen the quotes all over about how New England didn't let him teach. I let him teach. I asked for his opinion. I let him call plays. Remember the whole thing with Belichick was mad because Brady would change the play in the huddle because McDaniels wasn't calling the play, so he would just call a different play in the huddle, and Belichick would get mad. And you know, Bruce Arians basically said, like, this is nonsense. Like, this is absolute nonsense. This guy is one of the greatest, you know, players of all time. And not only that, one of the smartest, most accomplished quarterbacks of all time. And it's about time we give him some slack, which is also like he let him sit on Wednesdays, which like Wednesdays are typically supposed to be the hardest practice of the week. And like he told Tom Brady, and he also told Gronk, you guys don't have to play on Wednesdays. We're here for Sundays. You know, we're here for when the game is there. And that's such an unpopular opinion because nowadays everybody wants to be a hard-ass Jim Boylan type guy, and everybody wants to be able to say like, you know, well, we punch in a clock and we're hard-working Americans and we don't. And it's like, bro, these people make millions of dollars playing football. We can't sit here and romanticize what this is. These aren't guys who are going to war. These aren't guys who are working in a steel mill. These aren't guys who are working construction. They're football players. They're really good at playing football. And Bruce Arians, at the end of the day, he brought that mentality, which is like, listen, life is fun. We like life. We like what we do here. And this is supposed to be fun. And, you know, we also talked about like the opportunities he's given to Byron Leftwich and Todd Bowles, and you know, you guys have female assistants and other black assistants, and just the fact of the matter is that Bruce Arians has had a really tumultuous career. I mean, remember, like, he's retired, 3 times now? He retired once with Pittsburgh, once with Indianapolis, and this is a guy who, he took over for Chuck Pagano when Chuck Pagano had the cancer stint, and then, you know, he was a little bit upset he wasn't called back, but he, you know, didn't want to disrespect Chuck Pagano. Bruce Arians, to me, man, is really writing his story as one of the most underrated coaches in the league.
Yeah, and I'm with you on that. And I think at the same time too, I think Bruce Arians at the end of the day really put his ego to the side.
Yeah.
Because we know that he runs the whole no risk it, no biscuit, and it's got to go downfield, And I think when he noticed that he got Tom Brady in, and obviously Tom Brady is now he's 43. He'll be 44 by the time the season starts next year. And at the end of the day, I think Bruce Arians was like, look, Tom Brady is not the spring chicken he was when he had Randy Moss. Can he throw the deep ball? Yeah. But am I going to ask him to throw like 20 deep balls in my offense like I did Jameis, who has a younger arm and maybe a stronger arm? No, I'm not. So when Tom Brady's able to come in and respect Bruce and respect Byron Leftwich and understand the offense, but say, hey, guys, guess what? Why don't you let me, throw a little dink and dunk, and let's try and set some things up, and they can all get on the same page. And Bruce, is not going to let his ego. Right. I think that, and not to fly off subject, but I think that's what kills John Gruden as a coach, especially in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Remember, I said a few weeks ago, John Gruden never ran shotgun until Jeff Garcia became his quarterback in Tampa back in 2007.
Yeah.
And Jeff Garcia had to finally beat into his brand and say, hey, dude, I need to be in shotgun so I can see the defense a little bit better from here than I can underneath center.
Yeah.
And that's when he finally brought in shotgun. But if John Gruden, was the head coach for Tampa, no way is that happening.
Yeah.
He's like, this is my offense. This is how I'm going to run it. You're going to have to accept it, and this is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And Bruce Arians wasn't that guy, and you saw the success. But, the one thing I did want to bring up while I'm coughing my brains out is, what was the one thing, as silly as it sounded, that I brought up last Saturday? The coin toss.
Oh, yeah. And receiving
Kansas
the
City
ball. Yeah.
won the coin toss.
Yeah.
And I goofingly was like, do you receive the ball?
Yeah.
Or do you play in Tampa's hands, who likes getting the ball first and setting the tone? And Kansas City gave Tampa the ball first.
Yeah.
And obviously Tampa went 3-and-out on their first drive. And then, Tampa Bay was able to do the same with Kansas City. And then obviously Kansas City got the first field goal. But I was like, dude, if Tampa comes out and scores this touchdown, y'all played right into their hands. That's what they like to do.
Yeah.
They want to set the tone first and beat you up the rest of the game. And it's kind of what happened, because after Kansas City gets the field goal, I turned around and went on Facebook and jokingly said, hey, this is how the Super Bowl went in 2002. And it went as planned. Yeah. You give up the field goal to Kansas City just like Tampa gave up the field goal to Oakland, and it was pretty much guns running after that. Because the next thing you know, it's 21-3, and then you go into half and it's 21-6. And in that game against Oakland, they went into the half 24-6.
Right. Yeah.
Funny enough, if I was Kansas City, I'd be like, dude, let me get the ball first, so then I can take Tampa out their comfort zone. But that's not what they did. But yeah, dude, I'm with you. I think Bruce and there's now reports coming out that Bruce Arians' family actually asked him to retire after last year. They wanted him to step down. Yeah. They was like, he's old.
He has some health. Yeah, he has some health issues, right? He has a few health issues. Yeah.
Yeah, and they wanted him to step down and just relax, and he said, no, I want to come back. And obviously, thank God that he did, and now we're Super Bowl champs.
And I totally forgot to mention too, Nick, one thing that I think is really impressive about him is the succession plan he put in place for Todd Bowles that basically says that he wants Todd Bowles to take over when he's done, if and when he's done. And I think that's another huge thing that's really missing in this league right now, is that coaches do not put, like, for example, at my job, we have succession plans for every single level of employee. Meaning, if you start off in this position, your trajectory, hopefully one day, will be this position, right? A position above you. And in the NFL, that's almost unheard of to have a coach say, I want one of my coordinators to take over for me. And usually it's like, oh, yeah, I'll let him go to another team, because it's like, hey, I still get my team. But the lack of ego on Bruce Arians is so apparent, and I think that's so impressive to me, because you and I both know after that performance that defense put on in that game, you already know Todd Bowles started to get some phone calls that were like, hey, you know what? I hate to say it, but like, the AFC West, is it? Yeah, that Kansas City's in. Those three teams had to look at, like, the Chargers, for example. They should have looked real long and hard at Todd Bowles, because if you have to play Kansas City twice a year for the rest of your franchise, you might as well have Todd Bowles on your side. But again, that goes back to how silly it is sometimes that some of these assistant coaches, guys who have never even held. I mean, Nick, I don't know if you heard about this, and this is something that really pissed me off, but Josh McCown, who is a practice squad quarterback for the Texans, was getting interviewed for the Texans head coaching job. And people wonder why Deshaun Watson wants out. And people wonder why Deshaun Watson, talks shit about this franchise. You have a emergency quarterback. This guy was teaching high school football 2 years ago in Josh McCown. And now he's a practice squad quarterback, a guy who, again, like, whatever happened, Nick, to being an assistant for 5 years and then making your way into, but now it's like these guys, I mean, like, don't get me wrong, like, I know, like, David Culley is one of the ones from Baltimore who ended up going to the Texans. He had a pretty nice assistant career, but like, then why are you even interviewing a guy who's a practice squad quarterback, knowing that your franchise quarterback is pissed off at you? I just think that right now, like, Todd Bowles to me is looking like there's probably a few teams who made some personnel decisions over the last month or so that go, shit, we probably should have waited for that guy.
Yeah, but you know what, dude? That goes back to our conversation last week and kind of the week
Rooney
prior
rule,
about Eric Bieniemy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, think about it. Todd Bowles actually interviewed with Atlanta I don't know if he actually got an interview and if he actually went and talked to him, or if they were talking about it.
Yeah.
But remember, everyone kept saying, the way Todd Bowles is, he deserves another chance in the NFL as a head coach and this and that. And I bet you Todd Bowles was sitting there thinking, Bruce Arians is almost 70 years old.
Yeah.
He's on his last leg. He may not make it past, next season. He might want to retire. dude, I got a great situation here in Tampa.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can convince Byron Leftwich to stay as my offensive coordinator since he knows the guys. You know, I'll bring in my own defensive coordinator with my game plan. I'm going to let Tom and Byron do their thing. If Tom is still here, I'm going to work with the defense. It would almost be like Tony Dungy going to Indianapolis. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
When Tony Dungy went to Indianapolis, I'm pretty sure he was not in Peyton Manning and Tom Moore's ear saying, hey, I got an offensive game plan that's going to put us over the top. No, you go out there, you fix the defense, you bring in or you draft a guy like Bob Sanders, you draft a guy like Dwight Freeney, you run the Tampa 2, and in 1 year it's going to work, and it did, you know, when they played the Bears in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
You know, and I think Todd Bowles, it could go down that same boat. Hell, Mike Tomlin went down that boat. Mike Tomlin was the DC in Pittsburgh, and then he took over from Bill Cowher and hasn't looked back since. So that you know, again, you know, we talked a lot over the last couple of weeks about the what's the word I'm looking for? I guess the you know, the lack of black coaches in the NFL and how Bieniemy didn't get a job interview, and maybe Todd Bowles didn't get one, but I think he did interview with the Atlanta job and they went elsewhere. These guys are going to be on the come up.
Yeah.
You just got to play. You just got to be patient and not just want to take any job because it makes you head coach.
Yeah.
How about you try taking a job that makes sense?
Yeah.
And that's why I was saying, if I'm Eric Bieniemy, why would I want to go to Houston if I got a quarterback that doesn't even want to be there anymore?
Right. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
You know, and now speaking of the Houston Texans, you know, we're all talking about where Deshaun's going to go. The price is too high. It's too high. Dude, 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and 2 defensive studs, all for Deshaun Watson, who,
good luck.
if I'm not mistaken, hasn't even sniffed the AFC title game.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, you
careful.
know, with him, like I'm not willing to, you know, throw that title on him. I do think the price is ridiculously high, and also, you know, one thing that the Texans are just bad at negotiating. Like, that's just bad negotiating because there's only 2 teams in the league who can even come up with a package like that, and the Jets and the Dolphins are that. And you know, to me, the Dolphins don't seem very motivated right now to do all of that for Deshaun Watson, because you have to remember, Nick, this was like 3 years in the making of getting all these assets. Remember, a couple of years ago, we were talking about how, you know, Miami is tanking and what they're doing is bad, and you know, there's no reason to do this, and they got all these assets now, and I think people want them to give up all the assets for Deshaun Watson. I mean, I think Deshaun Watson's a great quarterback, and I think he could be a guy who can get you to the promised land if he has the right pieces. But man, are you really, really that low on Tua, or are you really, really that low on your current team that you think Deshaun Watson? I mean, to me, Deshaun Watson doesn't put either one of those teams over the top. It's not like if he joins the Jets tomorrow that the Jets are an automatic contender. And it's not like if he joins Miami. I know Miami's a pretty good team, but like, you know, let's say, for example, does Miami, you know, make that move and all of a sudden become Super Bowl contenders? I don't believe so. So I just think that, you know, it's really easy for us to sit here. You know, obviously we're armchair quarterbacks as a profession, but at the same time, you have to look at the grand scheme of things, and I think more teams have to start looking at it the way that Tampa Bay and Kansas City's looking at it, which is that why are we letting other people walk away to other teams? Let's put them in a position where they feel comfortable to stay with us. You know, the real problem is that, you know, obviously there's only one place you can go above a defensive or offensive coordinator, right? You can't, like, you can make him an assistant head coach, you can make him an associate head coach, you can give him all these title changes, right? But there's only so much growth you can have. But I think it's just important for teams to put coaches like Todd Bowles, like, instead of making the Rooney Rule about interviewing black coaches and you know, making this quota for interviewing, let's make it so that, you know, every single staff has a certain amount of black coaches on it. Or, you know, let's not make it just about the head coaching, right? Let's make sure that the demographic of the league is the same demographic of the you know, the coaching staff. Like, that's another thing. Like, people were saying, well, it's a little bit odd that Tampa Bay has, all of these black assistants and a female assistant, and it's like, is it though? Because most of the team is black, most of the league is black, and at the end of the day, we're not sitting here talking about something too controversial. The Rooney Rule was a good-intentioned rule that was meant to make sure that there's more opportunity for black head coaches. I think the best way to do that is to create a system that allows black head coaches in general to be in positions where they can grow. We see all the time where players will retire, and the next thing you know, they're a quality coach, and they're sitting with the clipboard in their hand. We see it all the time with players sitting in the clip. But then there's some of those players who hold a clipboard for 10, 15 years. That's a little ridiculous. I'm sorry. I think I know one of them. Man, his name is escaping me. He's a really good defensive player. I think he's like one of the guys that was interviewing for the Bears defensive coordinator. So yeah, it's a little bit of an odd thing, but I think eventually we'll get it right, and I think that's a good step in the right direction, which is the Todd Bowles and Eric Bieniemy examples, because we had Sean on last week and he talked about what a situation that could be for Eric, where it's like, why not stay the rest of my career with Patrick Mahomes as my quarterback, right? Like that only makes sense.
Exactly. And I'll say this, dude. I'm not the biggest fan of Deshaun Watson personally. Let me put it like this. I know you called him a great quarterback. I think he's really good. I wouldn't go as great quite yet. However, what I will say is this. If Tom wasn't coming back, maybe I would lower my stance. Our pick this year is 32nd.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if you guys take a quarterback, man. I really wouldn't be surprised if you guys take a quarterback there.
I'm all for it. And let him groom.
Yeah.
I'm all for it and let him groom, dude, because Tampa Bay we're at a point right now where if we run it back, exactly where are we going? Because think about it, our offensive line, for what it's worth, was really good this year. And even Aaron Stinney, who filled in for Alex Kappa, before he fractured his ankle against New Orleans,
he looked good.
Hadn't given up a sack in almost all year as well.
Yeah.
You have Worse that hasn't. You have Ryan Jensen that's good. Ali Marpet is amazing. And Donovan Smith had arguably – had arguably one of the best 3-4 game stretches in the playoffs, in the last month. So, you're not going to get it there. Our wide receiver depth is really good. And if you bring back Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones, we're going to be okay there. Yeah. And the defense right now is on cloud 9. And I bet you they can't wait to come out next year. And I would almost venture to say that at some point Todd Bowles maybe hit up the defense and said, hey, guys, look, this is what I've been trying to preach all year. Like the Tampa 2, because that's all they ran on.
All
it
was the two deep safeties. Yep. Yeah.
And what Todd Bowles was saying was, look, the only reason why I blitz so much is because we can't get to the quarterback.
Right.
But you see what happens when you can get to him. You see what happens when you're able to get rushes where I don't have to keep bringing 5-6 guys to blitz the quarterback.
Yeah.
Now everybody's in their assignment. Now Tyreek Hill only has 4 catches for 60 yards.
Mm-hmm.
Now Travis Kelce has 9 catches for 100 yards, but they're just sporadic 10-yard catches here and there.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really mean anything. This is what I'm talking about. And I bet you somewhere they're on cloud 9 saying, I bet you if we all came back next year, we could probably be the best defense in the league. And I bet you there's that aura that goes around it. So, yeah, dude, I'm with you. I would not be shocked if first of all, I'm not believing that Blaine Gabbert is the successor.
Yeah, that's the reason why I say it, because why else would you even say that? To me, that's like trying to freak a okey doke on somebody. Blaine Gabbert's gonna be our guy, and then Trey Lance falls to 32, or even Mac Jones. Mac Jones is really making a lot of noise right now. There's a lot of people. There's a lot of people the Bears are talking possibly getting him at 20. So there's a couple quarterbacks where you're like, you know what? All right, I have my quarterback right now, but I'll stash this guy away and see what we could do.
Exactly. So, and I also want to bring up a name that Orlando Brown Jr. is asking to be traded from Baltimore because he wants to play the left tackle. I guess he's more comfortable on the left side than he is on the right side.
And they have Ronnie
and
Stanley.
That's not a fit in Baltimore because they just signed what's his name today, huge contract.
Ronnie Stanley, yeah.
So there's that talk, and we'll see what's going on. I think there's a lot of free agency moves that are going to happen, especially quarterback wise. We mentioned Sam Darnold, we mentioned Deshaun Watson.
Jimmy.
You mentioned Aaron Rodgers. I think the San Francisco 49ers, John Lynch is right now celebrating his, entry into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
But I think he's going to be ready to go to work. I think San Francisco's biggest problem was they just got hurt. Think about it, man. With Jimmy Garoppolo 2 years ago, you were the NFC champions. So, in my opinion, is Jimmy G really the problem in San Francisco?
Right.
Or is it the fact that I mean, Kyle Shanahan really loves running the football, which sets up passing the football. And if you're San Francisco, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to hand the ball off to a guy running behind one of the better offensive lines in the game. So we'll see what they do there, dude. But yeah, I'm happy Tampa won the Super Bowl. But now we get into the off season, we get into draft, we get into free agency, we get into the carousel. But I trolled Packer fans for a whole week. And then I trolled Chefs fans for a whole week, and now I've been celebrating for a whole week, and now I got to turn my attention to the Knicks, the Rangers, and pretty soon the Yankees.
Yes, sir. Hey, and before we switch gears, guys, because obviously we've exhausted ourselves here with NFL talk, but we're gonna come back. We're gonna come right back with it next week because I'm sure there's gonna be a couple of trades. There's gonna be a couple of moves here between now and then we have to get. We're only I think a couple weeks away from, or I'm sorry, about a month and a half or so away from combine time, and then you're looking at draft and free agency. So before we switch gears, guys, I just want to remind you, please continue to share, like, subscribe, whatever you guys want to do. I know a lot of you are on Facebook here, so Facebook we stream live, but we also have YouTube as well, and YouTube is obviously a pretty awesome platform for watching it later, so you guys can always watch us later on. If you're more of an audio person, iTunes, Spotify, we are on both. You can go to mackandblack.com and there's multiple feeds for you to get your fixin' wherever and however you would like. So continue to share out the show if you guys can, and continue to support us. We really appreciate it. We really want to continue to put on good quality content here because I feel like we've been really putting out heaters for you guys lately. So please continue to continue to support us. Yeah, we're coming with some serious heat, and by the way, it's only just beginning because once baseball kicks in, and then we'll have both of our teams are performing pretty admirably right now as far as our basketball teams. I know our hockey teams right now are a little up and down. On the struggle bus, but the Blackhawks, we'll talk about it in a second, haven't been too bad. But anyways, just continue to share it out because we're gonna have some really awesome shows for you guys coming up. So mackandblack.com. If you guys like YouTube, subscribe on YouTube and leave us a review on iTunes. That really helps. But wanted to mention that before we switch gears here because let's talk basketball because man, those Knicks made a move, and anybody who knows me knows I love Derrick Rose. So I was very, very happy to see he got out of the abyss in Detroit. And man, I mean, Leon Rose. Listen, give him credit. A second rounder and what's his face for Derrick Rose? DSJ. Hats off, man, because that was nothing. You didn't even have to give up. You didn't have to give up a first rounder. I thought at least for sure there would be at least a future first rounder. It turned out to be a second rounder and a guy who's going to be a free agent next year and who hasn't played for you guys anyways since being traded. So give me your initial thoughts on. Let's do this. Give me your initial thoughts on the trade, and then give me your thoughts on the trade once D Rose was actually in the uniform because man, he performed well.
Yeah, he did. I like the move. I thought that, Derrick Rose comes in, knows the Tibbs system. can really teach IQ Emmanuel quickly the system, with Tibbs wise, but he really brings a spark off the bench, and I think that's one thing that the Knicks kind of was lacking. Like Emmanuel quickly, I think is going to be a really good player, especially for us. But now, I think Emmanuel quickly is a point guard with the shooting guard mentality, and then you have Derrick Rose, who's the veteran. So I think this move makes sense because now when you're looking at the rotations, Emmanuel quickly and Derrick Rose are both at the floor at the same time, which basically makes quickly the 2 and Derrick Rose obviously the 1. When I saw the package that they gave up, I was like you. I'm like, dude, Leon Rose does it again. You gave up a guy who asked to be in the G League, and then you gave up a second-round pick that wasn't even yours.
Yeah.
It originally belonged to Charlotte, and now it belongs to the Detroit Pistons. So I think both teams kind of got what they wanted. I think the Pistons were able to get rid of Rose, bring in a young guy in Dennis Smith Jr., give him a fresh start in a place where he'll get more time, and then you get a pick. Where in New York, you get Derrick Rose, you got a guy that Tibbs wanted. And I mentioned to you before the show, I thought that when we went off the air, it sounded like the Knicks were the front runners, and it sounded like they had a deal in place. But the question was, there was a holdup. And I thought the holdup was they were going to try and throw Blake Griffin into the deal.
Right.
And I still believe that they were trying to throw Blake Griffin into the deal.
Yeah.
I just don't think the Knicks wanted it because he actually has a player option for next year that's like $20-some million. And the Knicks at this point, I think the way Julius Randle is playing, I think they might try to max him out. Now, I might be wrong on that, but, you're not going to get – he's the oldest player on the team, and Julius Randle's only 26.
Wow.
So I think at some point, I think they might try to max him out and give him the money, make him the centerpiece, and try and build around Julius. But, we beat the Wizards last night, and they play again today, and I for whatever reason, I'm blanking on who they play today. But, they beat the Wizards last night. The Knicks are right now 12-15. They're like 7th or 8th in the East. And, they played really tough against Miami. Now, that first game against Miami, we didn't have Derrick Rose, but we had him in that second game against Miami, and they played really well. So, even though they took the L, I thought the Knicks played really well. So, I like the move. I like the move, and I'm glad D Rose is back. And I thought it was kind of stupid. He's wearing number 4. I was like, dude, Reggie Bullock, you can't
give him
25.
Come on, man. Yeah, that's
petty. Reggie Bullock, are you really stuck on 25, bro?
That just shows that Derrick Rose, though, is not an egomaniac, because people tried to make him out to be this egomaniac when he was with the Bulls because, his brothers were around, his inner circle was around, and sometimes they put out bad feelers. But Derrick is such an egoless guy. He's one of the most egoless guys that's probably in the league right now because, let's be honest, man, those types of injuries humble you as a player. I mean, this was a guy who the youngest MVP in the league history and, was probably getting ready to have a monumental career with the Bulls before, those types of injuries. But, yeah, Derrick is so egoless, and I was happy for him because, first of all, I don't know, I think it shows that, the league is going in such a different direction because Detroit was one of the only teams to even express interest in him over the offseason, which was like really, it's to me, man, it's I know like there was a while where they were saying the Clippers, maybe the Lakers would bring him in for cheap, but everybody really, counts out Derrick, and I think it's clear he's got game left, man. I think he's not the athletic guy that he once was, but I thought the Knicks got a good deal there because, you didn't give up anything for a guy who's going to be able to be a difference maker on the court. And I still think the Knicks are probably, I mentioned J.J. Redick to you before. I think J.J. Redick would be a really nice volume shooter. I still think they need that volume shooter. I think Quickly's really good in the mid-range game. The fact that Reggie Bullock, though, is still starting for the team is, it's a little tough. I understand where Tibbs is coming from. He likes those gritty guys, 3-and-D kind of guys, so I get it, but Yeah, I just think right now the Knicks saw what we saw when we were evaluating the East, which is like the East is pretty up for grabs right now. So and the Bulls are right in that mix as well because they keep putting together nice runs and then losing a game here, nice run, lose there. They lost a couple of really tough ones over the last couple of games. They also had a one game where Kobe White and Zach LaVine set a record for 3-pointer. I think both first time in NBA history where two teammates both hit 8+ threes, which I could have swore I thought Clay and Steph did that before, but I guess not. And they did that against New Orleans, and we were just talking about New Orleans like, man, Stan Van Gundy, things are not really going the way that he'd like. That team is not really responding the way that he'd like. And JJ Redick's on the block. I'm hearing a lot of stuff about Lonzo Ball, about how the Bulls are interested in Lonzo Ball possibly. And there's a couple of other teams as well because Lonzo is going to be a restricted free agent after this year, so you could match what he gets, but like that's the same deal, that same sort of dilemma that the Bulls are in with Lauri Markkanen, because like Lauri is not really good enough to take on a serious contract yet, but he's going to hit restricted free agency and somebody's going to give it to him and you're not going to match it. So it's a tough position for the Bulls, but I don't know, man. The Bulls are stuck in a position where they're like still in somewhat of contention. They're showing the improvement that they want. But I hope that they start to make some trades here as far as like not – I wouldn't even say necessarily Zach LaVine because I just don't think you're going to get what you want out of a trade for him right now. But like, a guy like Thaddeus Young, a guy like Denzel Valentine, if somebody wants to take I think there's a couple of veterans that could help some teams. But I'm not convinced the Bulls will go out and shop Zach LaVine right now because he's had some really, really nice games over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, dude, I'm with you. And you're right. We were talking about the Pelicans earlier. And, the funny thing that you and I both brought up is the continuous regurgitation of some of these coaches. Like, dude, just go off in the sunset, Oh, yeah. If I'm not mistaken, is it I saw Alvin Gentry on a sideline.
Yeah, he's on a bench. I believe he's on the Clippers bench. I'll look it up first. I think he's on the Clippers bench.
Yeah, maybe it is. And I'm just like, dude, New Orleans, I feel like, one of my brothers in arms, Roy Herman, is a diehard Bulls fan. And, the one thing that he always says about the Bulls is he's like, dude, I hate when Chicago comes out and gets these regurgitated coaches to come on here, at the end of the day, since Phil, maybe the best coach that the Bulls have had has been, Tibbs.
Tibbs, yeah, 100%.
Tim Floyd and Fred Hoiberg and Jim Boylan, just to name a few. And then you look at the New Orleans Pelicans, and dude, they're in the same boat. Byron Scott, Alvin Gentry, Stan Van Gundy,
They let Monty Williams walk. Like that was crazy.
That was crazy. And it's just like it's so mind-boggling because it's like, here people to me are so funny when it comes to talking basketball. Karl Malone came out about a couple of weeks ago and said he doesn't understand on how Zion Williamson can be tired for someone who's 21 years old.
As if and
everyone was killing Karl Malone for saying it and bringing up his personal life. And I was thinking, where is he wrong?
Yeah, but the thing is, I don't think he's the thing that I think people were giving him crap for is that, like, I don't think it's necessarily that Zion is the minutes stuff wasn't about him being tired. It was about like the fact that New Orleans had spent a number 1 pick and didn't want to ruin it. But you can't have that mentality. Like you can't put everyone in a glass case. Like you got to be able to take the reins off eventually. We mentioned it with LaMelo Ball in Charlotte. Like James Borrego started off the season with him on the bench and maybe giving him a minutes restriction. And now it's like, okay, now we see he can do this. So yeah, I disagree with what Carl was saying, but it's just because he didn't articulate himself in the way that he should have.
Right. But again, because that's what everyone's doing with RJ Barrett right now.
Right.
RJ Barrett, I think it's like top 10 in minutes played. And it's like, oh, he's gonna wear this kid out. Dude, the kid's only 20. You know what
Yeah,
I'm
no,
saying?
you
Like,
can't.
like,
Yeah.
like, don't get me wrong. I don't want RJ playing 48 minutes a game.
Right. Yeah.
But I'm not going to sit here and fret that a guy who's 20 years old with about the freshest legs you could think of and energy for days.
Yeah. Here's one thing I will caution you though, Nick. If your coach wasn't Tom Thibodeau, I'd probably give you that point. But Tom, listen, Tom's a great coach. I love Tom Thibodeau. I wish he would have stayed with the Bulls. But Tom has a really nasty knack for not really giving a shit about minutes. And you have to, in this day and age, it really comes down to being able to like limit risk, right? It's not necessarily that like you're like worried about RJ Barrett, right? What you're worried about is that RJ's going to play through an ankle one day or play through a knee discomfort one day. And that 40-plus minutes on that knee or ankle is going to equal what happened to Luol Deng, what happened to Jimmy Butler at some points, what happened to Joakim Noah, Derrick Rose. So I agree with you. I think it's a little bit silly, but that just goes to show, Nick, like, teams are not playing around when it comes to assets anymore. Like with what happened with Zion was super interesting because, like, basically Zion was a number one pick and everyone was like, this guy's going to be dominant. He's going to be a no-brainer. He's going to be amazing. And what happens the first season? He gets injured. He's injured in training camp. They try and play him through the injury. That doesn't work. Then they put him on a restriction, and then they just sit him out for the rest of the season. Then his second season in the league, his whole year has a minutes restriction. And then this year, they're like slowly getting him back into it. That's just because New Orleans are really scared right now that Zion is going to be out for the season because of what they do. You can't live scared, man. You just got to play, let the players play. What happens, happens. And, like, you know, look at what the Bulls did, man. It's like the Bulls were, like, super soft with Derrick Rose at first, and then the whole Derrick Rose saga happens, and then next thing you know, Derrick and his family are in the media saying that he can't play, and the Bulls are saying he can play, and then they put him in a position where he was okay with leaving town. So you don't want to do that with superstars, especially a young guy like RJ Barrett who has the type of potential that he has. Just like let him play to what he's comfortable doing. Back to what we were talking about with Bruce Arians. Communicate with your player. Hey, you know what? If you want to sit out tonight's practice, that might be okay for us because we want you there on game day. So I think it takes a lot more of that. I think the league is going to get better at that. But yeah, I agree. Minutes restrictions for somebody who's not injured is a little bit weird.
It's very weird.
Yeah.
It's very weird. I
gotta admit that.
Oh, yeah. Hey, by the way, dude, I need to go off real quick on Obi Toppin, dude. If somebody does not tell Obi Toppin to start going to the hole when he sets picks, I'm going to lose my effing mind. This whole notion that everybody has to shoot threes in the NBA is going to piss me off.
Yeah.
I look absolutely no further than the game that he had. It was against the Heat the first time in New York. Obi Toppin sets a pick, right? Instead of going to the hole where the lane is wide open, he peels back for the three. Yeah. I'm like, Obi, roll to the hole, dude. Yeah. You just set a G-ass pick. Quickly is coming over. He's got to step on the guy. If Obi goes to the hole more often, 6 dunks a game, and it's not even close.
The problem is he's hitting some of those threes, right? Like, the problem is he gets confidence because he hits 1 or 2 of those, and then he's like, you know what, I'm just going to keep shooting this.
Yeah, he did it against the Bulls.
Yeah, exactly. He did it against the Bulls. Yep. Yeah.
He had those 3 threes in that second quarter, and I'm like, okay. I was like, all right, look. I like Obi's shot. But dude, take your dumb ass to the goddamn hole. Yeah. He does it every single time. And then he doesn't get the ball. And then I'm like, well, then what is he out there for? You might as well just bring Julius Randle back in the game.
I think that's part of it, though, Nick. I think part of it is that he's coming off the bench. So he's like, you know what? I'm going to get my shots up while I'm here, you know?
Forget that, dude. Well, he's going to have to play more time now because Mitchell Robinson fractured his hand and had to have surgery. He's gone for 4 to 6 weeks.
Ouch.
So now he's going to have to get more time. But, dude, just go to the hole, man. Like, I don't understand. You know what? Obi Toppin reminds me of a poor man's Amari Stoudemire. And I was thinking about this in the car yesterday, that I don't know what Amari is doing nowadays. I don't know if he's on the Nets bench or if he's just still playing in Israel or whatever he's doing.
No, he actually, you hit it on the head. He's with the Nets right now.
He's with the Nets?
Yeah, he's with the Nets, yeah. But that would have been a nice guy to have on your bench is what you were thinking. Yeah.
Dude. If you look at Amari and how his game improved when he started developing a jump shot, and then you see the athleticism that Obi Toppin has, and you know he can kind of shoot the ball, but you know you would like a little bit more consistency with the shot. I think there's a similarity there. Yeah. And I'm like, if you're Amari Stoudemire, call Obi, be like, hey, yo, man, meet me at the gym real quick. Let me show you a few things. Man, when you hit the pick, don't always go out for the three. Look, you set the pick right there. If you stand there, they're going to go to the point guard. Yeah. That's an easy 2 points right there. You don't always have to pop threes. And here goes a crazy idea. If you do a pick and pop and you happen to see that there's a wide open lane, here's a crazy idea. Go down the damn hole and throw the ball in the hoop like you was doing all last year in Dayton, dude. Yeah. Like, it's there for you. You don't always have to pop the three. But, you know, that's the rookie and the NBA mentality nowadays. But I'm telling you, man, the pick and roll will work in New York. It works with Mitchell Robinson. When Mitchell Robinson sets good picks and goes to the hole, it's alley-oop all day. Yeah. Obi could be the same way. And I think Obi's game is still a little bit more polished than Mitchell Robinson's game. Dude, Obi would be – I'm not saying he's going to be rookie of the year, but, you know, he would get more time if he would just go to the hole and stop, just wanting to hit threes all day long.
And Tom just doesn't like I thought Quickly deserved more minutes a couple of weeks ago, but Tom just doesn't like playing rookies. I think part of it is because, like, you know, the defensive mentality of a rookie is very tough to really drive in until they start to sit on the bench a little bit. And, you know, remember, Jimmy Butler sat on the bench for almost his whole rookie season. I mean, he was good enough to play that season. I remember vividly that, you know, I think it was like Keith Bogans that was ahead of him. Like, he could have played ahead of him. But Tom is just, like, trying to really instill that. And, you know, let's be honest, it worked out well for Jimmy. So we'll see. Yeah, Keith Bogans, that's the Wayback Machine for you.
Hey, tell me why I was watching the G League game at the gym earlier today, and dude, Jared Jack is still
he's still playing and there's a couple of veterans who are still playing the G League. I wonder, I mean, you know, I think part of it has to do with the Euro ball has gone, like, with COVID, Euro basketball has gone a little bit south, so, like, guys like Jared Jack can make careers in Europe if they want to, but he's like, you know what, fuck it, I'll take the 100,000 plus, you know, plus the NBA perks being here in the G League. But yeah, I saw Amir Johnson, I saw a couple of vets that were playing. I'm like, what the hell are they doing there? But, you know, at the end of the day,
still flying up threes.
I think Jared Jack probably is a guy who's like, you know what, I want to be a coach one day, you know, and might as well just stick in the G League, because that seems like that's what's going to happen now, Nick, is that, like, the G League is going to be more than just a pipeline for young players. It's going to be like, here's our holding place for people who we want to be future coaches, future scouts, I mean, you know, I know, like, the Bull, like the Windy City Bulls, man, they are like, you know, they advertise as if, like, hey, this is the step before jumping into the Bulls, right? It's like the minor leagues, right? So, you know, it's going to be interesting because the NBA right now is in a weird position because they, you know, last year was the bubble year to end the year, and this year they're doing pretty well. I mean, we've had some cancellations and some postponements, but for the most part, COVID hasn't really been a factor. But when you think about it right now, you're looking at a league that, like, is one bad outbreak away from having a stoppage, and that's scary, and I think that's why the schedule is a little bit weird. Like, there's a little bit too many back-to-backs for my taste. I think I think 3 days, and I think the 3 games in 5 days is pretty dangerous if you ask me. I know that, like, I get it, like, okay, you want to get the most bang for your buck, so, like, sometimes you'll, you know, fly into Milwaukee and play Milwaukee on back-to-back days. Okay, that's all fine and dandy, but man, the league is in a weird position because, like, the money flow that from the TV is still coming, but individual owners aren't making the money that they once were. So it's going to be interesting to see how the league is affected by this, because we talked about the salary cap for the NFL. It goes up a little bit this year, and they were expecting it to actually stay around the same, and it went up more because of some of the craziness that happened on the TV for the NFL. But yeah, same thing with the NHL too. Like the NHL now with this new sort of format where it's like you only play within your division rather. It's a little bit odd because the Blackhawks seem to be. First of all, the Blackhawks seem to be playing really well under this new structure. Like they kind of enjoy. I mean, listen, we've been missing pretty much 30% of our team for the most of the training camp, and you've got guys who I think we've had 8 debuts this year alone. So we've had 8 rookies make their debut this year. So I just think the leagues right now are starting to evaluate safety wise. I know people think it's crazy to say that, but listen, man, neither one of these leagues wants to be known as a super spreader. I know we're not in the same situation we were last April or last March or whatever you want to call it. So people are saying, well, COVID's done. No, it's not done. Okay, we're still dealing with the repercussions of this, and the last thing the NBA wants is to lax some rules, have Lou Williams go eat wings at a strip club, and next thing you know, you got 50 positive tests, and you got a league that's known to be a super spreader. You don't want that.
Right. Now I'm with you on that. And hey, speaking of which, dude, what was I going? Oh, I know what's gonna bring up this whole All-Star game stuff, dude. How desperate is the NBA right now with this All-Star game? And dude, they're so desperate that they were talking about doing a dunk contest at halftime of an All-Star game that I thought was agreed on that there wasn't going to be an All-Star game this year.
Yeah, it's silly, man.
So Adam Silver, what are you doing, dude? Are the ratings down that hard on the NBA that you need an All-Star game and the halftime show? First of all,
let's
a dunk contest at halftime must be the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
Thing ever.
It's stupid because think about it. The dunk contest usually takes about an hour, maybe.
At least an hour, yeah.
So you're going to ask these guys to sit down for an hour while we do the dunk contest at the halftime of an All-Star game?
What are they going to be in their warm-ups, sitting on the sideline watching other players? And it's not like you can have fans there. So what the hell are you even going to have? That's another thing is they're not even targeting for fans. So I don't understand what the whole it's basically just so they can have it on TNT. I have a feeling, Nick, that TNT. Mr. Turner called up Adam Silver and said, listen, make this happen because I need this. Because you have to remember the TNT without basketball is in big trouble. I know that they pulled AEW. AEW's on TNT, right?
You're right.
Yeah.
Right.
I know they pulled AEW, which I'm sure has helped them just a little bit. But they remember, man, without basketball coverage, and we're talking both college and pro, TNT's in a bad situation,
Right. Because their baseball coverage is actually on TBS.
Yep, exactly.
Even though it's owned by the same people, but
yep. And then March Madness, it's on TBS too. There's maybe a couple of games that make it to TNT, but otherwise it's TBS.
Yeah, it's mainly TBS and CBS.
Yeah, and Mr. Turner, I'm sure. Listen, Mr. Turner, you shouldn't have 3 damn channels in the first place. How about you just stick to one channel? That's another thing is I don't feel bad for these billionaires and these millionaires, dude. That's when LeBron and Giannis are coming out in the media and saying, what the hell are we doing even talking about this? This is not just a fan thing. I think everybody in their moms are probably saying this is stupid, but you already know what's going to happen. They're going to force it through. The players are going to have to grit and bear it because they're the ones who called the shots, and they're going to do it. So I think it's silly, and if it's going to take somebody to get hurt for them to cancel that's a really, really big issue.
Either hurt or you're going to need to have a LeBron James might need to step up and say, look,
I'm good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's I appreciate you guys voting me in, but like I said before, I just don't have the energy right now to play in an All-Star game.
Can't blame
This
him.
is not the time for us to do that. And for what it's worth, I have to give all the credit in the world to the Los Angeles Lakers because you're seeing the tale of two teams here. Los Angeles is what, maybe a game behind or a half game behind for the best seed in the West.
Mm-hmm.
The Miami Heat right now are struggling.
Yep.
They really have literally almost the same team they did last year, and they are on the struggle bus. And I honestly think that Miami's just tired. You know, you don't have you basically got the same squad, but you didn't have enough time to really come off the hangover that was I just lost in 6 games to the finals. Where in Los Angeles you won it, and I know LeBron James is probably thinking like, man, I could really go for 3 months off. And next thing you know, ring, hello LeBron, this is Adam Silver. Just calling to let you know that we're going to be starting up the season around December 23rd. LeBron's like, dude, it only gives us like 2 months to recover, bro. Like, I just got home from sitting in this stupid ass bubble for the last 3 months, and you're gonna say like in 1 month, I gotta get back into shape. Like, dude, I'm tired.
Yeah.
But don't worry about it. You know, we talked to the NBA PA, and they said there will not be an All-Star game. All right, man. All right, fine. I'll work it out. Then here you go, like as of 3 weeks ago. Hey, LeBron, it's Adam again.
Sorry to bother.
So I got a call from Mr. Turner, and things aren't looking good. And we got to get the All-Star game back on TV. Nah, man, we just agreed to not have it. I'm telling you, you're right, dude. Somebody above is making these decisions that's not named Adam Silver.
Yeah.
But, of course, sometimes when you're the commissioner, like, it's a great name to have, but you're still kind of like the bitch to the owner, so to speak.
Sure, you are. Yeah.
And so, and to the broadcast companies. So when they say jump, you basically got to say how high.
Yeah. If you want a paycheck at least, you know, if you want your paycheck, you better say how high, you know?
Exactly. So, you know, I feel bad. I hope this All-Star game thing doesn't go, but I'm with you, dude. I feel like it's a lot of, you know, it's too many games per week. I understand what they're trying to do, but this is almost as bad as, remember when the NBA went on strike and then they had like the 52-game season, and there was times where these guys were playing 3 games in a row just so that the playoffs could start in April like they usually do.
It's silly, dude.
Come on.
Yeah. And I want to talk. I want to talk some MMA with you too. So I don't want to get too far into this one, but I thought there were supposed to be no fans. Like, what is 2 Chainz doing, and what is that rich old white lady doing in Atlanta? You know, remember that lady who got in a fight with LeBron on the sidelines and was like talking to. Like, what are we doing here, man? You guys are really that desperate for a few $1,000s that you're letting 2 Chainz and Quavo and some rich dude with a old plastic wife in, and next thing you know, they're getting in fights. She has her mask off. She's yelling with her mask off, and like, it's like, I thought there were supposed to be no fans. What happened to that? Like, there's clearly a disconnect there.
And you let them sit on courtside?
Like, come on.
Sit in the 100s like everybody else. Yeah, go back in the sit in the 200s. Well, I ain't gonna lie to you, dude. Especially for hockey games, bro. And I did this 2 years ago when the Rangers came to Chicago play Blackhawks. Yeah. The 100 level is not as cracked up as they are. No. Like, I would prefer to sit in the 2s. Because where I was sitting at, I sat in the area where the Rangers saw it twice, but I could barely see anything on the other side because I got Quenneville's big head ass in the way, and then the Blackhawks are in the way, and then down the way there's who's our coach at the time? Alain Vigneault. I was like, I can't see anything past your head.
Yeah.
That's it. Trade tickets with me.
No, you're right though. That United Center seat in the 2 or the 300s is vastly better because you could see everything on the ice, whereas there's like a huge blind spot. There's a huge blind spot in it when you're talking about the 100 level, so it's a little weird. Yes.
Aaron Craycraft are, I feel like our old classmates are talking to us right now.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, let me attend to something real quick.
Oh, no, you're good. Aaron said he loves your hat. I need to clean mine up and present the top American League team. And Sean said, don't ever talk about Sideline Karen.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Sideline Karen, that crazy-ass lady.
Yeah, no kidding. But Aaron, we'll get into baseball here soon because
It's in the front seat. Yeah.
I'll argue with you that the White Sox are the top AL team. I know one top AL team, and they're not the Chicago White Sox. So, and dude, and you want to talk about a players' association going against a major association? Look no further than what's going on between the MLB, PA, and Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
Like first of all, the Major League Baseball Players Association can kiss the fattest part of my ass. You tell me last year what made you not want to do a universal DH, or here's a better one yet, not do the expanded playoffs. The expanded playoffs were fun as hell, dude.
Yeah.
3 games into the 5, into the dual 7s.
Yeah, you might as well.
What's the problem?
Yeah, especially with shortened, like, from what I'm understanding, like, I don't think 162 is going to happen. And if you're going to shorten it, you might as well use this season as a blueprint. Because remember, I think everybody was calling for a shorter regular season anyways, right? I thought 162, we could have knocked that down. You might as well use this as a basis to try and figure out what's going to happen in the coming years. Because the MLB's in the same boat too. They're like really trying to collect. They really, really, really want to have fans in the stands this year. And they're trying to say, well, we're outside. It's different. We're gonna be outside. We can socially distance. And to me, man, like I just feel like we don't have to do that. I feel like it's okay to say let's make this weird for at least the next year until like COVID's vaccinations are a little bit more around and people are a little bit more safe. I think that's what we're gonna have to do. But hey, you and I both know that we don't make the decisions. The players don't make the decisions. The people with the deep pockets are the ones who make the decisions, so we'll figure this out, I guess.
Yeah, Aaron said, I hope fans come back ASAP. 0 fans in the stadium is BS. We can all pack into a small airplane and Targets and Walmarts, but not 25% into a stadium. Matter of fact, the most hated man in New York right now, Governor Cuomo, came out the other day and said that they're finna lower their stance on fans in the stands. And, you can thank the Buffalo Bills for that one because, when Buffalo made the playoffs, they tried it. It worked. It sounds like no one got sick. And that if someone would have gotten a positive test for COVID in Buffalo, New York, you would have heard about it.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I'm saying? And you didn't hear any positive tests. So he's like, well, let's try and go a little bit bigger. So you're going to start seeing it in New York. And it seemed like, I feel like New York was kind of is about to be the opening of Pandora's box because Florida, obviously they had fans at their stadium. Down here in Texas, there's fans at their stadiums left and right. We saw fans at the World Series at Arlington or wherever the Rangers are playing now. So we'll see, but I know you guys, I know Chicago, I'm assuming that Illinois is still getting blasted COVID-wise, even though the kids are.
I mean, the thing is, it seems like the cases, it doesn't even matter anymore. Like that's another thing that's really weird. Is like the cases amounts seems to not being it's not being part of the process of figuring out what's happening, right? Like, that's another thing. Is like, okay, fine, you want fans back in the stadium, great, but we have 30 different stadiums in 30 different cities. Or might be a little bit less than that because I know there's some sharing, but you've got a really complex problem here that can't be done or that can't be solved by the MLBPA or the MLB commissioner. Like this is going to have to be a group, like grass level, ground roots, a decision that's going to be made because, like you said, like I'm sure people in New York or Chicago are going to have a little bit of a different opinion than people in Kansas City and in Texas and, in some of these other areas. So, to me, I just think it's like I would rather have no fans in the stands and keep everyone safe than to not guarantee the safety of both the players and the people at large. Because, again, man, like traveling, like Aaron said, we can pack people into here, we can't pack them into there. Well, listen, man, like there's a difference between going to Walmart for food and water and going to a baseball game for shits and giggles, right? So, like, I don't know, man. I just, I have a complex. I don't necessarily think Aaron's wrong because I agree. I hate that there's no fans in the stadium. I think it's stupid to watch, but at the end of the day, I do see the necessity around it, but I do see a little bit of hypocrisy. Like even Cuomo was like, he just got caught cooking some numbers, and him and his people are trying to cover up something that maybe they, didn't want to put into the media. So it's all really crazy right now, and I don't think anybody last year was thinking we would be here in this spot in February of 2021 and still talking about how, COVID's affecting us, but here we are, and we're still doing what we can. But I mean, I do think that, again, it all comes down to, like, it's not even about the fans anymore. It's about the owners who's going to be greedy enough to go out there and make it happen just because they want to.
Right, exactly. Let's, as we're getting to the twilight of the show.
Yeah.
I do want to talk MMA because we got some big fights coming up here soon. Tonight we got Usman versus Burns is tonight. You mentioned Derek Lewis versus Curtis Razor Blades is coming up. What, that's next week, I think?
Next week, yeah.
And then in about a month or so, we'll have the soon-to-be heavyweight champion of the world, Francis Ngannou, taking off the current champ of the world in Stipe Miocic. However, the real reason why I kind of want to bring up MMA with everything that's going on is the desperation of one Dana White. I don't know if everyone got the same ESPN notification that I did, but Dana White is still, for whatever reason, optimistic that Khabib is going to come back and fight. And Khabib, 2 days prior to him making that announcement, came out and said via ESPN that he feels that Dustin Poirier deserves the belt, but he's not willing to fight him for it because he's just not interested.
Right.
And when I saw that first note by Khabib, to be honest with you, bro, I wasn't shocked that he said that. Just for the simple fact of the way Khabib left after he beat Gaethje, I was just like, dude, this dude's not coming back. And I don't know, like Dana White lives in, walks to the beat of his own drum because he's thinking, oh, no, man, you know what? I'm going to give him some time. This might have been emotional, blah, 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 this and that, yak. And every time Khabib comes out and says that, you know what, I think I'm good, retired, 2 days later, here's Dana White. I'm going to go ahead and head over to where Khabib is at. And we're gonna, I told him to meet me at Abu Dhabi. I'm going to put him in the VIP lounge and we're going to talk. And then you'll say to yourself, okay, that sounds like, ooh, something magical is fit to happen. And then the next thing you know, Khabib is like, dude, maybe I was going to fight Conor, but this stupid ass just lost to Dustin Poirier. Nah, I'm straight. I think I'm going to stay at the crib. And then, here comes Dana White. You know what, though? I still got faith.
Remember that week, Nick? Remember it was the UFC's like countdown to the big announcement. They kept putting out notifications. Big announcement coming, 60 minutes. Big announcement. And then like the announcement came and it was Dana was like, Khabib said maybe he'll come back if something spectacular happens. And then everybody was like, that's the announcement? Your announcement is that maybe something happens if something else happens? It's silly. It's silly, and you're right. Like, Dana's coming off super thirsty right now. And to me, it's not even about I think at first I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt that it's like, okay, he wants to see the best fights happen. He doesn't want to see fighters go before their twilight. But now it's just getting to be borderline abusive. It's like, dude, this guy Khabib has moved on. I mean, he's I don't know if you hear, but he has his own MMA promotion in Dagestan now, and it's apparently really big in both the Middle East and the Gulf Arab states and some of Eastern Europe as well, because obviously Khabib's name rings bells in that area. So, and I don't know if you heard, Habib's doing Lord's work because he wants to put together a Brock Lesnar and Fedor fight. I don't know if you heard about that.
No, I did not.
Yeah, he's apparently his manager Ali Abdulaziz is close with the management of Brock, and apparently Habib has said that he wants to make a Brock Lesnar versus Fedor fight for his EFC promotion. I don't know what that stands for, but it's basically his version of the UFC. So Eagle Fighting Championship. So
nice.
So yeah, but again, like Dana, I think he's starting to look at these divisions and go, there's not a lot of storylines left, man. Like the storylines start to create themselves, right? That's when you know the MMA is good, when the storylines are creating themselves. But when you have to create the storyline and like force feed Conor and force feed these veterans down, now we're gonna see Donald Cerrone versus Diego Sanchez, like as if
a fight no one cares about,
as if everyone's like, I really need to see that Diego Sanchez and Cowboy fight. So to me it's silly because Dana is really getting to the point where I think he sees that like the divisions are getting held up pretty crazy right now with like for example, middleweight is being held up by Izzy because he wants to fight for the light heavyweight title, and then the light heavyweight title is getting a little bit held up there because we don't necessarily know what's going to happen after that fight. If he loses, who knows if Izzy even keeps the belt? And then you got heavyweight being held up by Stipe because Stipe only wants to fight once a damn year, and he doesn't want to fight Francis clearly. And then now again, I don't know if we said it on the show, but Dana was like, well, he's already confirmed that the winner of Stipe and Francis is going to get John Jones. But then John Jones comes out in a tweet and says, I don't know what he's talking about. I look forward to contract negotiations because this is something Dana is notorious for. He just says things in the media because he knows he's putting these fighters in really tough positions. Where if he says in the media, well, John's gonna fight the winner of this guy, and then John comes out and says, I don't know what the hell he's talking about, then John looks like the asshole here, right? So it's a weird position, but I think Dana, man, I don't know. Dana's squirming in my eyes right now. Like the numbers were not. He was talking about how the numbers for Dustin versus Conor were as good as Dustin or Habib versus Conor. And in my mind, it's like, okay, but what are you celebrating about? The fight itself happened, and then Dustin, he walked off like he didn't even want to be there. He's doing media. He's doing media with Ariel Helwani talking about, I don't know if I even want to fight anymore. I'm not sure if I even like this shit. Like, it's like, what is going on?
And you know what? But here's the thing, dude. I think at the end of the day, bro, I think if I was Dustin Poirier, I probably would feel the same way too.
Yeah. Because
the last time I checked, there was more than one guy not named Conor in this fight.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like so let's say you and I were both in MMA, right? And like let's say you were very successful in MMA and the fans love you. And I'm up and coming. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm finna fight Mack, but all the hype is around you, and everyone's talking about you and how you're gonna win, and you're like minus 1,200 on the money line, and how dare anybody put money on me because you're like a step and above better than me. I would be a little pissed off too.
Sure.
I'd be like, yo, am I not fighting in this fight? Have you not seen my resume?
Yeah.
Is it not that good? I mean, yeah, I'm not Conor the Notorious McGregor. I'm not out here fighting Floyd Mayweather to get my ass beat. I'm not out here being called out by Logan or Jake Paul. They both look the same as far as I'm concerned.
Exactly.
I'm not being called out by him. They're not calling out my wife. I'm not on TV promoting Proper 12. Like, my face isn't out there, but there's more than one dude fighting. So after the fight and the win, guess what? More people talked about Conor losing than they did about Dustin winning. Yeah. And if I'm Dustin Poirier, I'm like, then what am I doing here? Yeah. Like, why am I fighting? Like, why am I going to sit here and have the UFC look at ESPN as this stepping stone, and all ESPN is going to do is suck and hug the nuts of Conor McGregor when I just beat his stupid ass in his ring, and y'all don't even come and want to ask me no questions. No, you want want to stick with Screaming A. Smith and every other moron that they put out there to hug Conor's nuts after I just beat his dumb ass in this ring.
Yeah.
Piss off. I don't want to be here either.
And then remember everyone was talking about nice Conor too. It's like, Conor's so nice. Like, this is the nicest we've ever seen him. And maybe this guy's reformed. Maybe we had Conor all wrong. And it's like, all for nothing.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So if I'm Dustin Poirier, I'd have been like, dude, I would almost rather go to Bellator and at least know I'm gonna get some type of equal fighting, some equal TV play than to sit here with the big boys and freaking have ESPN hug Conor's nuts as if, because when he beat Cowboy Cerrone, you thought the nut hugging on that was, oh my God, the Notorious
He's
is
back.
The greatest of all time. Don't sleep on the GOAT. And then the GOAT gets his monkey ass beat, and all of a sudden it's, well, Conor will be back and it's gonna be okay, but let's talk about it. No, how about you talk about me?
Yeah. And you know what's also gotta be discouraging, Nick? He just went in there and completely wiped the floor with him. And then, like, one of the first questions afterwards was like, all right, you ready for the three-peat? Like, are you ready for the number 3 against him? And, like, if I'm him, I'm like, dude, I just wiped the floor with this guy. Like, why are we talking about rematches or a trilogy with this guy? I get it. Like, yeah, he Conor beat Dustin pretty handily, like, 6-7 years ago now. So I get it. But, like, to automatically be talking rematch and not a title fight is a little bit weird, and I think Dustin's a little bit caught between a rock and a hard place. First of all, Conor did some really nice things for him, including like donate to his charity, and again, like we talked about the nut hugging fest that was the press conferences that week because they were just slobbing on each other, and Conor's so nice now. Oh my God, Conor offered him a drink and said he's gonna take him and his wife out for dinner, and it's like, okay, but like we're talking about the same dude who sucker punched an old man, same dude who threw a dolly at a bus and almost ended multiple people's careers. Talking about a guy who allegedly cheats and beats his wife. I mean, I'm just saying, like, let's if we're gonna keep the energy for other athletes, let's keep that same energy for Conor. So, the PR machine was working for him.
Glad you brought that up, because the same idiots that want to sit here and look past what Conor has done in his past life are the same jackass morons that keep saying, well, Antonio Brown doesn't deserve being in the NFL. Dude, they almost were in the same boat.
Yeah, or even to the same extent like John Jones. I know John Jones is sort of a knucklehead himself, but like you can't go one conversation without somebody bringing up that John Jones is a steroid guy. He ran over a pregnant lady. He's did coke. He partied during. Yeah, exactly. And it's like we have to keep this same energy for Conor. And the thing is, I'm sorry, Nick, I don't give people brownie points for being humble. Like, I believe that that's something that you should be in your life in general, and right. Like, because Conor was humble after the fight and was saying, Dustin won and him and his little accent, which I think is fake. I part of me thinks that accent is fake. I really do, because I've heard him talk in some interviews. I'm like, he sounds American, and then you're like, in another he like really punches it up. Like after the fight, he really punched it up like as if he could barely speak English. So I don't know, man. I think at the end of the day, you could see that first of all, the UFC was not happy about that result. I think what they were hoping for was like a really like nice 5-round fight and like a decision, and then to see their golden boy sort of get put on his ass like that, the first time he's ever got knocked out, which is pretty impressive on Dustin's part. But yeah, I think now the division is sort of all up in the air. Now Nate Diaz wants to throw his name into the hat and fight Dustin Poirier, but Poirier wants to do it at 155, and Nate wants to do it at 170. And then Justin Gaethje's now talking like, who's going to take me? And then now it's like possibly Tony Ferguson versus Conor. There's a lot of options here. I think the only thing that's really interesting about the division right now is if Khabib ends up coming back and says, you know what, okay, let's do this. Who do you give him? At this point, you can't give him Dustin again. I mean, the way that he did Dustin, can you really give Dustin to Khabib again? I don't know, right, man. It seems like the UFC stuck between a rock and a hard place, and that gets us to the the one later tonight because the welterweight title is on the line, and it's against two teammates. You know, Kamaru Usman and Gilbert Burns have, I think they said they sparred like 700 plus times with each other. Like, that's a nutty amount of time. So this is going to be a really good fight. And, you know, honestly, Burns is the underdog, but you got to watch out for Gilbert Burns, man. This guy is a fucking monster on the ground. And you have to remember that, you know, Kamaru Usman's game is really, really based on the clinch and dirty boxing and really, you know, finding the space, you know, close and then basically being able to, you know, be distant when on the feet. But Gilbert's going to be going for takedowns. He's going to be trying to get him on the ground, take his back, and get his back on the mat. So I don't know, I don't know what exactly is going to happen, obviously, but I think that it's going to be a good fight because from what I understand, all of their teammates at the gym have said that their sparring rounds have gone fucking crazy. So I expect it to be a real barn burner of a fight. But man, Gilbert Burns is if you got some money to spare, I think he's plus 250 if I'm not mistaken. Right now. You know, you might want to think about that. Don't want to go too crazy with it, but he might be able to pull it off.
And you know the funny thing is, dude, it's like I'm not shocked that you say that about Gilbert Burns because a lot of the hype I think in this fight is that Gilbert Burns is really good,
right?
And I think I think this fight is bigger for Kamaru Usman, and the reason why I say that is because I don't think a lot of people were super impressed with Usman's last title defense against Masvidal.
Yeah.
Because remember, he was doing a lot of stomping on the feet, trying to get Masvidal down.
And it was like 10 days notice, too. People thought he was going to put him out because it was only 10 days notice, you know?
Right. And you know, a lot of people weren't impressed by it. So I think this is huge for Kamaru to come out and impose his will on Gilbert Burns and kind of take away that doubt from the last fight, you know. And I'm anxious to see what happens in that fight too, because one name that and I know I haven't heard it in a while, but dude, whatever happened to Covington after he lost to Usman? Like, he kind of
now they're talking Leon Edwards and Covington because Chimaev fell out on Edwards. So they were originally trying to do Masvidal versus Covington, and then that sort of fell through at the last second, and then Chimaev had to pull out a couple days ago from that Leon Edwards fight. So that's the third time they tried to make that fight, and it's fell through. So now I think they're going to give Covington to Edwards and then let them fight it out, and I think the winner of that fight will probably face Kamaru again, which, I think Colby probably really wants that rematch because let's remember, man, it's hard for me to say because I don't like Colby and I do like Kamaru, but that was a really good fight, and Colby was actually, you can make a point that he was winning probably 2 out of the 4 rounds that they were in until
at least the first two.
And then remember, like, it was lucky for Kamaru that he put him out, because otherwise, even if he put him down but didn't put him out, if that went to decision, that would have been really close.
Right. I'm with you on that. Because I really thought Kamaru may have underestimated Colby in those first couple of rounds and had to turn on the afterburners in rounds 3, 4, and 5 and really dominated Colby after that, which got him, more or less got him the win. But I agree with you. And that's why I think this fight right now is just so important for Kamaru, because I think, like you said, even though he's the favorite, Kamaru, I think there's a lot of people that really think that Gilbert Burns can take him out. Yeah. So, it's up to Kamaru to come out and have himself a really fun fight. And, I mentioned earlier, you mentioned earlier about, it seems like now the heavyweight division is starting to, they didn't fix the engine, so to speak, and the car's starting to run, because, we're going to get Lewis versus Blades. And if we talk about that fight, I think it's Derek Lewis has the most to lose in this one, because he's kind of he's kind of like the unsung number one contender, not named John Jones. You know, Derek Lewis has got a couple of really nice wins and is on a nice little streak coming. And remember when Joe Big Head Ass Rogan came out and told Derek Lewis a few fights ago, that he was
won a title,
that they thought he was ready for a title fight. He shut that down and said, dude, I'm not even close.
I got to get on cardio. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? He said, I got to get my cardio up.
Yeah.
He's like, man, I got to get my ground game defense up. So he was like, I'm not close. But if he comes out and beats Curtis Blades and wins that, you know, once again, Dana White being, you know, the desperate dumbass at this point, dude, you can't give me Bones versus Lewis if he wins this.
Yeah, I think John probably wouldn't want to do that. You know, that's another big part of that is that John, I think he left for heavyweight just a little too early. You know, you and I both know that he didn't want to fight Jan. He did not want to fight Jan. Like, he wanted nothing. After that, the Dominic Reyes John Jones fight, and then Jan did that to Dominic Reyes, I think he looked at that and said, I'm good. I'll let him keep that, because Jan's a scary motherfucker. That's why I'm worried for Izzy, man. I love Izzy. I think he is one of the, you know, best fighters in the world, pound for pound. But man, oh man, he's might have bitten off more than he can chew, because Jan is not a fucking game. Like, Kelvin Gastelum pieced up Israel pretty nicely in their fight, and obviously we know how that fight ended. Izzy looked terrible, but he won the fight. If you get pieced up by Jan, you're going to sleep. You're not going to have a busted lip. You're going right to fucking sleep. So, yeah, that's an interesting point, because you got Blades Lewis next week, the 20th. You got Rosenstruy Gane on the 27th. That's another interesting one, because Cyril Gane is sort of like nobody's really talking about him. And then you got Blachowicz versus Adesanya on March 6th for what would be, again, a double title for Izzy. And then you got a fight night on the 13th, and then you don't got Miocic and Ngannou until March 27th. So then you're thinking, okay, March 27th, that's when we got the heavyweight title fight. Then you've got to get another 6 months to plan out the fight with the winner versus John Jones. And by the end of it, John's going to be sitting around for almost a year and a half, almost 2 years when it's all said and done. That seems kind of excessive to me, man. I think you've got to really, if you're John's people, you got to really think about long and hard about what you want to do here. Because if I were him, I would take a fight here. I would take a feeler fight, like you said, like maybe a Derek Lewis. But you know, I just think the problem is John Jones's people are really adamant about the fact that he doesn't want to he doesn't want to play down to his opponent. But, like, you know, at the end of the day, John, you're putting yourself in this position. You're constantly going on hiatus for one reason or another. You know, first it was the steroid stuff. Then it turns out you didn't do steroids. And then it's like you were doing coke and you got caught for coke. And then you had the incident with the lady, you know, the pregnant lady you hit. So, like, it's just like so many things going on, and the UFC can barely keep up. And right now, again, like, I wouldn't be surprised. I hate to say this, knock on wood, this doesn't happen. We don't even know if that Stipe Francis fight happens right now. Like, you know, shit can happen. Crazier shit has happened. Stipe keeps pulling out. He takes a year to get ready for a fight. It just, I don't know, man. The UFC's in a weird position right now.
Right. And I feel like Dana White doesn't have the balls to really, like, call these guys out. Yeah. You know, it's like, dude, yo, Stipe, man, what we gonna do? Like, cause you fighting DC was like 8 months ago. So what are we doing? Oh my God. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think I'm over exaggerated, but I can't be.
No, you're right, because I mean, it's got to be at least 6 months, right? Like, I'll look it up it's got to be at least 6 months, because DC's been retired after that, right? Like, he's been in the booth and doing his podcast. So you're not that far off with that.
Right. So it's just like, dude, and then, like, for whatever reason, I feel like, you know, I remember like, you know, before, like, pre-UFC pandemic, where having an interim title was kind of like the thing until the champ was ready to come back. And for some reason now I feel like Dana White's very hesitant to name interim champs in some of these leagues. But dude, you got to do something, dude. Yeah. You want to have a reason why your pay-per-view viewings are down. Let's not talk about what the price is to get these SOBs. How about we talk about what you're putting on the card that's not worth us watching?
Right. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So It's I don't know, dude. Again, every time ESPN gives me a notification about the UFC, if you gave me 10 notifications about the UFC from ESPN, I roll on 6 of them
Yeah.
because right, because it's either Dana White being desperate, a fight being canceled, or John Jones yapping about whatever.
Yeah.
Like John Jones was on Twitter the other day, still crying that he's the greatest of all time when everyone put Khabib in that spot. He's still crying about if your name isn't on this top 5 title defense list and you shouldn't talk. John, shut up, dude. If you honestly keep trying to, again, and we discussed this before, quality versus quantity.
Right.
You have the quantity of wins, but your quality of wins over the last 4, 5, 6 fights are not that great.
Yeah.
You went and grabbed the microphone against Dominic Reyes and had to convince the crowd to stop booing you because everybody and their mama knows you didn't win that fight.
Yeah.
Period. Point blank.
Yeah. No, I agree. And, we talk about quality of the cards. I mean, this is only a 10-fight card because there was some cancellations. For the most part, I think this is a pretty high-quality card. I think, like, Bilal Muhammad versus Diego Lima is going to be a hell of a fight in the welterweight division. You've got, Maki Patillo versus Julian Marquez. That's going to be another really good one. Ricky Simone and Brian Kelleher in featherweight. There's going to be a cut. If you're one of those who's like, females don't know how to fight, catch this Macy Barber Alexa Grasso fight later on tonight. Alexa Grasso is a badass bitch, man. She does not fuck around. And Macy Barber, who I think she's coming off of her ACL, so this is her first fight in a long time. She's 8-1, and the last fight was the first fight she ever lost, and it was because I think she tore her ACL in the first 30 seconds of the fight. So, and then Kelvin Gastelum versus Ian Heinisch as well for another middleweight decision. That Kelvin Gastelum's coming off a couple of tough decisions himself. But yeah, I think Kamaru gets it done by unanimous decision in 5 rounds. I think Gilbert.
I think so too.
Yeah, I think Gilbert's a little bit inexperienced right now. I think the only way that Gilbert is going to be able to get this done is if he chokes him out. And I just don't think he's going to be able to knock out Kamaru, especially, Kamaru's one thing he's going to do is he's going to get in the clinch. And unless Gilbert can get that to the ground and get that fight to the ground, I have a hard time imagining Kamaru is not going to be able to piece up Gilbert because, again, these guys know each other and know each other really well, apparently. So I think it's going to be a good fight, and I think Kamaru takes it at the end by decision.
Yeah, I think so too. But hey, I think one thing that I will throw out there, that if, let's say, Usman and Burns put up a fight performance that's definitely fight of the night, and there's even one hint of controversy, I could see this being a rematch.
Yeah.
I could see like Usman kind of dominating that first round, and Burns comes out and takes him in the second round. I could see it going back and forth, and then in that 5th round they leave it all out there, and everyone's like, "Oh yeah, man, we'd love to see it again." I don't see Dana White saying, at this point, if I was Dana White, I'd be like, you know what, I've been wasting so much time trying to get Khabib to come back.
Right.
I'm gonna go ahead and let y'all rematch again until I figure out what I want to do. Do you be doing a favor for the UFC fans
sure.
if you do, if it comes down to that, you know? So, and another thing too, while we're on the subject of MMA, is it okay for men, especially, the macho men out there, to be okay with watching women fight in the UFC?
Yeah,
is that okay?
We talked about this.
I just want to double check and make sure.
It's crazy, man.
Because in the last card, and this made me so disappointed in some of my friends. You know how you go and you scroll down certain things on Facebook and you can see your friends making comments on like main posts? I have at least 5 or 6 friends who I've seen make comments on UFC cards that are women dominated.
Ugh.
And it's, so you expect me to pay $60 to watch 3 women fights? And because they're entertainment, dick. They're actually entertaining. They're a lot better than some of these guys that go out there and just dance and hug. And I'm not talking about, like, I appreciate a guy who's a master at wrestling, out wrestling somebody,
Habib,
because that's his move.
Yeah.
but these women lay it all out on the line, and 9 times out of 10, don't disappoint. But to be on that sexist crap, like God forbid any women come into the UFC that's not named what's the 2 ring girls?
Oh yeah, Ariana.
Yeah. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
The 2 ring girls.
Yeah.
Is it? I mean, it's okay. You know what I'm saying? I bet
Silly,
you wasn't crying when Ronda Rousey was out there getting beat up by Holly Holm and Amanda Nunes. I'm pretty sure you weren't tripping when Joanna Jędrzejczyk was going against
Wang Lee, Zhang Wei Li.
I bet you weren't complaining about that fight. No. Shit, those 2 fights were more entertaining. I would even tell you that Joanna and Lee fight was a lot better than Conor versus Dustin Poirier. Yeah. Surprise, right?
Yeah. And also, I mean, you have to take it like another thing that bothers me about that is like these dudes are soft as hell who say that, like because like they wouldn't dare say that to even a amateur female boxer because. I'll tell you what, they'll punch your fucking teeth in for doing it. So, you know, to me, man, I think it's so played out, and it just goes to show how insecure specifically men are. Let's be honest about what this is. We've got a really serious insecurity issue as a species, as male species. We've got a really, really insecure sort of personality trait that's like, I gotta make sure that people know that I'm the manliest man and I can, you know, women are not, you know, I'm not, and it's like, yeah, and it's like, dude, just fucking move on with your life. And and also like some of those fights, you know, there wasn't a ton of them on the last card, but some of those fights, those female fights were fucking bangers, and they almost all go to decision, and they're all bangers. So and I'm telling you, if you're one of those who's like, yeah, I don't watch female, Alexa Grasso, Macy Barber tonight is going to be a fucking banger of a fight. So, oh, and by the way, before we go, Frankie Edgar needs to retire, man. That was really bad.
And while he's at it, if Diego Sanchez gets knocked out coming up too soon,
please take him too.
They can both sit on the same boat.
Yeah, man. That was really tough to see. And then, like, I watched the interview and I read some stuff that he said. They asked him who he was fighting after the fight. He didn't know. He didn't know what day it was. He didn't even remember that he fought. It took him 4 or 5 minutes to even regain consciousness. Yeah, man, that's not a good. You never want to see that, right? Like, you never want to see a guy like that who goes out too late. And you know, sometimes it has to be your family. Sometimes it has to be. So, you know, honestly. As much shit as I give Dana White, one thing I will say about Dana White is he does not let guys fight past their prime very often, you know, and you know, he did it with Chuck. He did not allow Chuck to fight ever again in the UFC. He kept his word on that, even though Chuck went elsewhere and tried to fight and you know, did his thing. So yeah, I think it's time for Dana to step in on a guy like Frankie Edgar, because Frankie had said something during the week like, you know, it might be like one of those things where my wife has to step in or Dana has to step in, and I hope that happens. And by the way, Corey Sandhagen's a fucking monster. That knee was right on. So Aljamain Sterling, I know he lost to Aljamain, but that would be another really dope ass fight. And you know, I would just give Corey the title fight, man. And I think a lot of people talk about Cody Garbrandt right now, but yeah, I think Corey Sandhagen, man, that was a fucking spot on knee right onto the chin. Put him out really badly.
Yeah, I'm with you. So looking forward to the fight tonight, and I'm with you. I'm taking Usman to win tonight. So.
Okay, yeah, me too. But like I said, man, I'm not gonna be mad at you if you start putting some money on Gilbert, because you know, plus 250, it's hard to come by in a main event for the UFC. So you know, run with that. Another good one is I misread that. I was gonna say I thought Bilal Muhammad was a underdog, but he's a large favorite for that one. Yeah, Bilal Muhammad's a beast in the welterweight division. I can't wait for that fight. All right, Nick, man, that was another marathon.
Yes, sir. And I promise next week we will start talking baseball. I promise.
Yeah, man, we've got so much. I knew this week we weren't going to get to it because we needed to get to that Super Bowl. But next week we'll have a little bit less football to talk about, and we can give everybody a little bit more love.
Yeah, a little bit more love, because I know I got a clown that what I forget whatever it's called, but the prediction meter for Major League Baseball that honestly hold on, I think I'm cutting out. Who thought that that the Mets are gonna win the National League East over the Atlanta Braves? Dude, pissed off. Dude, the Braves are coming with the same exact team, and they brought back Marcell Ozuna.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to figure out if Atlanta's bringing back the same team, and they went all the way to Game 7 of the NLCS. How the Mets, who only got Francisco Lindor,
And lost a
is going
couple
to
of
be a
other
better
players
team
too.
than-
Yeah.
Give me a break.
We'll
Dude,
see
Mets
about
fans
that
are
one.
so delusional, dude.
Yeah, I want to
They're
go through that specific projection with you next week, so I'll come prepared with that because I thought that was silly. I think they had the White Sox at something like 70 wins in third place behind the Indians. I mean, okay, fine. If you want to put the White Sox behind the Twins right now, go right ahead. But to say that they're in third place, and I think Detroit was only a couple games behind the White Sox, I don't know how they came to those terms, but we'll definitely talk about that because another thing I saw was that they had the Cubs. I think they had the Cubs pretty high or higher than a lot of
like
people thought.
second almost.
Yeah, I think they had the Cubs
Second behind
higher.
St. Louis.
Yeah, I thought that was weird too because the Cubs are like doing everything they can to tear everything apart and lose this year. So,
Right.
all right. Again, guys, really appreciate all the love and sharing and whatever you guys do. Continue to do it. Really appreciate it. Obviously, mackandblack.com is a website. You can go to excuse me. And go to our YouTube page, which is PodRiver Network. But again, just search Mack and Black in the search field, and you will find us. Go to Spotify if you're an audio person. If you're an Apple person and you like the audio, go right ahead to iTunes and leave us a review, man. Why not? So if you like us and if you think we're doing good stuff here, leave us a review, share us out, and just continue to support. For everybody on Facebook that's watching, really appreciate it. Everybody on YouTube that's live watching, really appreciate it. And again, guys, just do us a favor and check out mackandblack.com and continue to share out the show.
Yes, sir.
All right, guys. Appreciate everything. We will talk to you guys next week with some more sports stuff. For Nick in the Big Texas, I'm Mac. Steve's in the back. We'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye.